Chapter 56. It was self-defense. Ouch! Heibao Bro's eyes bulged out of their sockets. Kong Xiaobo didn't seem to be satisfied with that, as he gave him another kick. This time, Heibao Bro fainted. Lin Yi shook his head at Kong Xiaobo. That was one of the more vulnerable parts of the human body, and continuous blows could be fatal. Lin Yi might have looked cruel, but he hadn't hit Heibao Bro anywhere near fatal. Lin Yi didn't want this guy he'd just met at school to end up in jail for murder, after all. Stop, he won't be able to take it anymore. Ah! Kong Xiaobo woke up from his hot-bloodedness after hearing Lin Yi's words. He looked at the unconscious Heibao Bro in disbelief. Xiaobo's personality had always leaned towards the cowardly side, and he'd never really gotten into a fight since high school, but in his heart, he was looking forward to a good fight. After all, it was a shame that he'd never gotten into a fight before as a man. But today, he'd done it. The excitement he'd felt just now was too much for him to contain. An ear-piercing siren sounded. Several police cars drove into the first high school with their lights flashing and sirens blaring. Ling Shan was quite troubled. Why did so many things happen in Songshan when Captain Yang wasn't home? First the bank robbery, and now a gun-wielding Communist Party member in a school. Ling Shan didn't dare be negligent when she heard that it was a gun-wielding Communist Party member. This was a major criminal case. Ling Shan ordered her fully armed men to get ready as soon as they entered the school, and they rushed to the scene of the crime. People in front, listen up. You've been surrounded. Please put down your weapons and fight for leniency. The police officer started yelling under Ling Shan's orders. Lin Yi frowned. Why were the police here? Who'd called the cops? Lin Yi didn't want to make things too big. Subconsciously, Lin Yi didn't want to see that chick Song again. After yesterday's embarrassing incident, anyone would be too embarrassed to see her again. Lin Yi raised his head helplessly to see Ling Shan looking at him with a worried face. Lin Yi sighed and smiled at Ling Shan. Since he couldn't hide, he might as well be honest with her. Seeing Lin Yi here, Ling Shan's heart skipped a beat. Her face reddened, and her expression darkened. She didn't think that the culprit would be Lin Yi. She looked at the person lying on the ground at his feet, not knowing if he was dead or alive, and the fearful gazes of the people around him. Ling Shan subconsciously thought that Lin Yi was the culprit. Don't move. Hands up. Ling Shan pulled out her gun and pointed it at Lin Yi. Lin Yi was surprised to see Ling Shan pointing a gun at him. Was this girl trying to take revenge on him? After some hesitation, Lin Yi raised his hand. He was confident that he'd be able to dodge Ling Shan's gun and subdue her at this distance, but wasn't there a bunch of police officers with guns nearby? If they thought that he was trying to attack the police, it'd be troublesome. Take them away. Ling Shan pointed at Lin Yi and the others. Police auntie, Lin Yi was defending himself. These are the people looking for trouble. Kong Xiaobo panicked when he saw that the police were going to take Lin Yi away. He didn't care about the black muzzles anymore. He wanted to run up and explain. Ling Shan wasn't expecting someone to speak up for Lin Yi in a situation like this, but the word self-defense reminded her of yesterday's scene. That was a profound language. Two completely different words, but the same pronunciation. Ling Shan's eyes lit up. And so, Ling Shan's face turned cold again. We'll investigate the real situation. Take them away. Lin Yi smiled gratefully at Kong Xiaobo. He said softly, this girl has a grudge against me. She's trying to mess with me. It's fine. Kong Xiaobo paused. He didn't think that Lin Yi would have a grudge against Ling Shan. He was about to say something when Ling Shan walked over herself. Her eyes were wide and angry. Evidently, she'd heard what Lin Yi said. Ling Shan hated people who used their position for personal gain. She was furious when she heard Lin Yi say that she was using her position to mess with him. If she wanted to mess with him, would she have let him go yesterday? At the thought, a wave of anger rose up in her, and Ling Shan was starting to lose her mind. She grabbed Lin Yi's shoulder and said coldly, "What are you mumbling about? Are you colluding with me? We'll talk when we get to the police station." Lin Yi curled his lips at Kong Xiaobo. "See, it's just like I said. This girl is obviously here for me." Ling Shan really wanted to kick Lin Yi's ass, but she held it in. She didn't want to lose her job because of Lin Yi. At that moment, Wang Jifeng rushed over, sweating profusely. The principal, Ding Bingdong, came with him. He was in his office planning the school's bright future. This year, the board of directors had allocated a large sum of money to the school. Ding Bingdong planned to use this money to upgrade the school's facilities and apply for the National Model High School selection. Ding Bingdong was quite capable. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to become the principal of a school like this. The board of directors valued ability, and everything else was secondary. If the school didn't develop, then he'd step down. As a result, the school's rapid development couldn't be separated from Ding Bingdong's efforts. The sound of an explosion passed through the window. Ding Bingdong couldn't help but frown. Didn't he say it many times? Setting off firecrackers in school was forbidden. Ding Bingdong sighed. The rich kids in school had always been a thorn in his side. It was fine if they didn't study, but if they didn't disturb others, then Ding Bingdong would thank the heavens and earth. But a while ago, there was an incident of students setting off firecrackers in school. It pissed Ding Bingdong off, and he swore that he'd expel these delinquent students for ignoring school rules. But after some investigation, Ding Bingdong couldn't help but feel discouraged. The one who set off the firecrackers was 12th grade class 5's Pinliang, and the one who egged him on was his classmate, Yushu. If Pinliang's background wasn't enough to shake Ding Bingdong's resolve, then Yushu. This miss. Ding Bingdong really didn't dare do anything to her. Chapter 57. Chapter 57, Yushu's glorious history. She'd been bored out of her mind, so she told Pinliang that Mengyao wanted to hear the firecrackers go off. Pinliang had brought Xiaofu and Naipeo to the fireworks market, returning with a couple of workers half an hour later with a 5 million sounding firecracker. And so, the originally quiet firecracker field exploded into a cacophony of explosions. Classes couldn't be held at school, and the students couldn't hear what the teachers were saying. They were all gathered around the windows, looking at Pinliang and the others standing not far from the firecrackers with a smug look on their faces. They were laughing, that's 5 million firecrackers. The firecrackers continued to go off for the entire morning, and the school's teachers didn't dare to get close due to the power of the great god cannon. Left with no other choice, Ding Bingdong could only ask for help from the fire department. The fire department drove a fire truck and used high-pressure water cannons to extinguish the ringing great god cannon. Only then did the farce end. The negative impact of the incident wasn't too big, since the school hadn't suffered any losses, and no students had been hurt. Ding Bingdong quickly covered it up, and the board of directors didn't pay much attention to it. But you can't do this again and again, can you? Ding Bingdong was truly pissed off this time. He stood up and walked to the window, pulling the blinds open to look at the firecracker field. What he saw shocked him. It wasn't that easy to notice a firecracker in a big firecracker field, but no one was doing it anymore. The students had spread out in a circle, and Ding Bingdong saw a couple of burly gangsters in the center of the circle, as well as Pinliang's group and a student in a school uniform. Ding Bingdong's face twitched, and he almost lost his grip on the windowsill and fell. Those weren't firecrackers. They were gunshots. Ding Bingdong's heart almost jumped out of his chest when he saw what Heibao Bro was holding. He only breathed a sigh of relief after making sure that the injured person wasn't a student. He didn't have time to think about it anymore as he picked up his phone and ran out of the office. a terrorist armed with a gun in a school. If this matter were to get out of hand, he definitely wouldn't be able to take responsibility for it. Forget about applying for the exemplary high school, even he, Ding Bing Gong, would have to pack up and leave. Fortunately, there didn't seem to be any casualties, so Ding Bing Gong was a little relieved. When he went downstairs, he ran into Wang Jifeng, who was rushing up to him. "Headmaster, bad news. Something big has happened. I've seen it. What's the situation now?" Ding Bing Gong waved his hand, stopping Jifeng from speaking any more nonsense and directly asking him to explain the situation. "It seems like Pin Liang hired some gangsters to cause trouble for a student named Lin Yi, but Lin Yi beat them up. He's fine." Wang Jifeng introduced concisely. "Lin Yi?" The name sounded familiar to Bing Gong. "It's the student that Director Chu recommended," Wang Jifeng reminded. "Ah, it's him." Ding Bing Gong's heart skipped a beat. Thank goodness Lin Yi was fine, otherwise the consequences would have been unimaginable. Ding Bing Gong calmed down after hearing Jifeng's explanation. Gangsters deserved to be beaten to death, as long as the student was fine. The two quickly made their way to the police station, only to see Ling Shan escorting Lin Yi into a police cruiser. Someone of Ding Bing Gong's position, of course, recognized Ling Shan. He walked up to her with a smile. "Captain Song, why are you taking my student away?" Ding Bing Gong wasn't afraid of Ling Shan, but if Lin Yi was taken away, it'd affect the school greatly. That was why he was smiling. Especially since Lin Yi was someone Peng Zhan had recommended. Bing Gong had to be even more cautious. "Headmaster Ding, he's suspected of being involved in a violent fight. We're taking him back to assist in the investigation," Ling Shan said coldly. Bing Gong's face darkened at Ling Shan's lack of respect. "Captain Song, I'm quite close with your captain. Should I give him a call?" "Sure, but the captain's on a plane right now. He probably won't be able to pick up your call," Ling Shan said as she pushed Lin Yi into the police cruiser. Ding Bing Gong was infuriated. He was a man of status in Songshan, and he'd interacted with many big leaders, let alone Ling Shan. Which family didn't have a child in school? His school, especially, was a private one. It wasn't managed by the city, and answered directly to the board of directors. There were all sorts of people who needed Bing Gong's help, but this Ling Shan didn't give him any face at all. Bing Gong dialed Huijuan's number straight away, but all he got was the cold tone of the phone being turned off. It seemed that Ling Shan hadn't lied to him. Huijuan would only turn off his phone if he had no other choice, otherwise his phone would be open 24 hours a day. Huijuan was on the plane back to Songshan early in the morning. He'd been invited by a friend in the police force to help solve a case, but he hadn't expected a bank robbery to happen in Songshan a day after he'd left. He had no choice but to book a morning ticket and rush back to Songshan without stopping. Heibao Bro's two underlings were brought into the police cruiser as well. Pin Liang and the others, naturally, escaped, while Heibao Bro was sent to the hospital. "Lin Yi, you're quite something, aren't you? You just got shot yesterday, and you're in a gunfight today," Ling Shan said, annoyed at the nonchalant look on Lin Yi's face. Most people would be dejected when they were brought into a police cruiser, but this Lin Yi didn't seem to care at all. Lin Yi rolled his eyes as he looked at Ling Shan before turning his eyes elsewhere. He had to admit that she was very pretty, especially when she was in uniform. It was enough to make Lin Yi's imagination run wild. "What's with that attitude? I'm asking you a question," Ling Shan said, getting even angrier at the fact that Lin Yi wasn't paying attention to her. "People used to say that women with big boobs were brainless, but I didn't believe them. But now, I believe you." Lin Yi raised his head, his eyes scanning Ling Shan's body a few times. "What do you mean?" Ling Shan said, uncomfortable under Lin Yi's gaze. "Who are you calling brainless?" "Who knows?" Lin Yi curled his lips. Anyone with a bit of intelligence would be able to tell that it was those people who came to the school to cause trouble, and I was just acting out of self-defense. You, on the other hand, arrested me. Of course, Ling Shan knew what Lin Yi was talking about. But, no matter what, Lin Yi had heavily injured that Heibao bro, and it was unknown whether he was still alive or not. It wasn't wrong of her to ask Lin Yi for an investigation. Chapter 58. It's him. We'll only know what you did after the investigation. What I see right now is that you beat up that Heibao bro, and he's in the hospital, but you're fine. Ling Shan humphed coldly. So whether it was self-defense or intentional injury, we'll only know after the investigation. Whatever you want. Lin Yi knew that Ling Shan didn't like him, and wanted to use her identity as a police officer to lecture him. Both of them knew what kind of person Heibao bro was, and Ling Shan knew that this was most likely because of what happened yesterday. Ling Shan hadn't thought that she'd be doing something like this one day, but thinking about it, it wasn't really. At the very least, it was a fact that Lin Yi had injured Heibao bro, and it wasn't wrong for her to lecture him. The police car was the type that had a front and rear compartment, and only Lin Yi and Ling Shan were in the back. The driver couldn't hear their conversation from the front, and that was why Lin Yi was more open with his words, even daring to say things like, big boobs and no brains. Lin Yi turned his head away and ignored her, and Ling Shan felt bored as well. Fortunately, her phone rang at that moment, and Ling Shan picked it up. Song, it's Yang Huijuan. Huijuan's voice sounded from the other side. Captain Yang, you're back in Song's Han. Ling Shan let out a sigh of relief when she received Huijuan's call. She hadn't found a single clue on the bank robbery case after an entire night of interrogations, and her heart was burning with anxiety. Now that Huijuan was back, she could finally relax. Yeah, I just got back. I'm on my way back to the station. Are you alright? Huijuan asked. Heibao bro, a member of the Communist Party, went to Songshan's first school with a gun. I just went to deal with it. Ling Shan reported honestly. What? Heibao bro went to school with a gun. Huijuan jumped in fright at the news, not expecting so many things to happen in Songshan in just a day. Not much, but Heibao bro was heavily injured by a student, and he's in the hospital. I've brought the student back to the police station for further investigation. Ling Shan couldn't help but glare at Lin Yi. Alright, we'll talk about it when I get back. Huijuan said with a sigh of relief. The police car roared all the way to the Songshan police station, and Ling Shan personally escorted Lin Yi out of the car. The other two underlings of Heibao bro were escorted out by other officers. At the same time, another police car drove into the yard, and Ling Shan's eyes lit up when she saw the license plate. It was Captain Yang Huijuan's car. As expected, a tall, tanned man jumped out of the car and walked quickly towards the police office. It was Yang Huijuan, the captain of the city's criminal investigation team. Lin Yi saw Huijuan at the same time Ling Shan saw him. Why was it him? Lin Yi's pupils shrunk, and he quickly lowered his head. Captain Yang. Ling Shan said happily as she waved at Huijuan. Lin Yi really wanted to give this Ling Shan a kick. Why didn't you bring me to the interrogation room when you got to the police station? Why did you greet him? He had no choice but to turn his head to the side so that Huijuan wouldn't notice him. I didn't think we'd be right behind each other. Huijuan walked over and nodded to Ling Shan with a smile before turning to Lin Yi. This is the student who hurt Heibao bro. That's him. Ling Shan nodded as she looked at Lin Yi, only to see Lin Yi's head drooping down obediently. She couldn't take it anymore. What was the meaning of this? You were acting all high and mighty in the police car, but now that you're in the police station in Captain Yang, you're behaving like a good boy. Aren't you looking down on people? Ling Shan humphed coldly at the thought. Lin Yi, what are you doing? Raise your head and let Captain Yang look at you. Song, you don't seem to be in a good mood. He's just a student, have a better attitude. Huaijuan frowned. He saw that Lin Yi was wearing a school uniform, and instinctively didn't think that Lin Yi was a bad guy. He patted Lin Yi's shoulder. Kid, what's going on? Tell your big bro. Lin Yi lowered his head, speechless. Who's big bro? But Lin Yi was afraid that Huaijuan wouldn't recognize him, and so he lowered his head even more, not bothering to talk to him at all. Captain Yang, I'm talking to you. Ling Shan wanted to smack Lin Yi's head when he started putting on airs again. Oh. It's nothing. Lin Yi said in a muffled voice. Nothing? Huaijuan frowned. Why didn't this kid know what was good for him? He'd asked him that because he was a student, and he wanted to keep a low profile. He didn't want to leave a mark on his file, but he didn't expect Lin Yi to be so cold and indifferent. They were looking for trouble, and I beat them up. Lin Yi cursed. You weren't this nosy in the past, were you? What was wrong with you today? Huaijuan didn't move for a long while after Lin Yi said that, but Lin Yi felt a burning gaze on him. It made Lin Yi uncomfortable. Can you lift your head? Huaijuan found the words funny. There were too many similar people in this world. This person's voice sounded like that person's, but he was still a student. I'm not a girl, stop looking. Lin Yi sighed inwardly. Huaijuan had found out something after all, but he couldn't be blamed. There was no way he could hide from Huaijuan, who was known for his sensitivity. Ling Shan, on the other hand, didn't know what was going on. Lin Yi was ignoring Huaijuan, but why was the captain's attitude being so nice to him? Ling Shan was just about to lift Lin Yi's head when Huaijuan lowered his body and looked up at Lin Yi's face. That's right. There's no mistaking it. It's him. Huaijuan was 90% sure that the person in front of him was the one he'd been looking for all this time. He didn't know why he'd become a student all of a sudden, but Huaijuan believed his eyes. Arno. Huaijuan couldn't hold back the excitement in his heart. What? Lin Yi cursed inwardly, but pretended to be suspicious. Chapter 59. Delusional disorder. But Huaijuan didn't give up. What kind of person was this guy? It'd be a waste of Huaijuan treating him like a god if he could see through him with such a simple test. I say, Miss Song, it's fine if you're retarded, but why's your captain acting like this too? Lin Yi didn't bother dodging anymore since Huaijuan had seen his face. He raised his head. Man, looks like you guys have a lot of pressure at work. You should get some therapy to relieve yourself. Why won't you admit it? Huaijuan, on the other hand, wasn't paying attention to the conversation at all. He grabbed Huaijuan's shoulders and started shaking him back and forth. I'm a hound. Don't you recognize me? Ling Shan was just about to argue with Lin Yi when she heard Huaijuan call himself a hound. Her eyes went wide. What the hell was going on? Was the captain really starting to talk nonsense because of the pressure? Man, look at that, Song girl, he's seriously delusional, imagining himself as an animal. Lin Yi shook his head. Plus, he thinks I'm an animal when he sees me. That's right, he thinks I'm an animal. Ling Shan's face darkened. Captain Yang was always the calm and collected person. What was wrong with him today? He wasn't sure before, but now he was 100% certain that the person in front of him was the one he was looking for. They'd been comrades through thick and thin during those difficult times. There was no way Huaijuan would mistake someone else for someone else. Especially Lin Yi's tone of voice and the way he was talking, it made Huaijuan even more certain that the person in front of him was him. A sudden thought popped into Huaijuan's mind. Could it be that he was on a special mission and couldn't reveal his identity? Yes. That was very possible. Thinking back to the level of the mission they were on, Lin Yi's actions made sense. Song, leave him to me. I'll handle this case myself. Huaijuan said as he grabbed onto Lin Yi's arm, afraid that he'd run away. Ah. All right then. Ling Shan didn't understand why Huaijuan was so concerned about Lin Yi's situation, and why he was doing all these weird things, but she still obeyed his orders out of habit. Huaijuan didn't have time to chat with Ling Shan either. He grabbed Lin Yi's hand and ran towards the office building. Lin Yi smiled bitterly as he followed behind Huaijuan. It seemed like they wouldn't be able to escape this. Bang! Huaijuan shut the door and locked it from the inside, although Huaijuan understood that the man would be able to get out even if he was thrown into prison. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was quite carefree as he sat on the sofa in Huaijuan's office. Captain Yang, right? What are you trying to do? You need to know that we're locked in an office in broad daylight. If word gets out. Man. I'm still a high school student. Alright, there's no one else here, and my office is soundproof enough. You know that my nickname is Hound, and that means that my detection and anti-detection abilities are very strong. No one's going to be able to put a bug in here without me noticing. Huaijuan turned back to Lin Yi, his eyes fixed on Lin Yi as he spoke word by word. No way, right? What are you trying to do with me? Lin Yi said innocently, his eyes wide open. Stop pretending, Arno. You know what I'm talking about. Huaijuan said seriously. I'm sorry, you've got the wrong person. I'm not Arno, and I don't know what you're talking about. Lin Yi said with a shrug. I'm not mistaken. Huaijuan's face lit up as he jumped up to Lin Yi and shook Lin Yi's shoulder. Eagle, are you running away from something? Why won't you admit who you are? Lin Yi was indifferent. Was he really running away from something? Those years of war, that absolute trust between comrades. That beautiful face, that heartbroken gaze. It made Lin Yi's heart skip a beat. Ning's been looking for you all these years. Huaijuan's face was twisted. Lin Yi's denial was causing his emotions to change as well. Ning. Who's that? Lin Yi felt as if his heart was being pierced by a needle, but on the surface, he maintained a calm expression. You dash. Huaijuan's eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Lin Yi. You're trying to run away, aren't you? You're going to ruin her life. Huaijuan clutched at his chest abruptly as beads of sweat rolled down his forehead like rainwater. His face was white and twisted, and his body was trembling uncontrollably. What's wrong? Lin Yi was startled. Yes, he could deny everything, but Lin Yi couldn't just turn a blind eye to his former comrade, someone he'd put his life in. Huaijuan pulled out a bottle of medicine from his pocket with difficulty, opening it with trembling hands and popping a pill into his mouth. His face relaxed a little after a while, but he was still panting heavily. Lin Yi glanced at the label on the bottle. It was an imported sedative and painkiller. His face changed instantly. Why are you taking this medicine? Lin Yi was well aware of Huaijuan's physique. He was as strong as a bull, and it was impossible for him to have any hidden illnesses, but now, You're finally admitting it. Huaijuan's face was still pale, but there was a trace of a smile on his lips. Let's not talk about that for now. What's wrong with your body? Lin Yi asked as he helped Huaijuan onto the sofa, no longer bothering to deny it. I'm not that fragile, I'm fine. Huaijuan said with a grin on his face. It was obvious that he was happy. Eagle, I know I'm not mistaking you for someone else. You've grown taller these past 2 years, and the sharpness in your eyes has lessened, but I still recognize you. Fine, I'll admit it. Tell me what's wrong with you first. Also, why'd you retire? Isn't the organization you're with a lifetime membership? Lin Yi couldn't imagine what had happened to Huaijuan in the past 2 years. Huaijuan looked strong on the outside, but Lin Yi could sense a trace of sickness on his face. Old Lin was a famed miracle doctor in the village, and so Lin Yi's medical skills had been passed down to him as well. Chapter 60. Don't call me Eagle. Injured? How'd you get injured? Lin Yi asked. I got a new mission after we came back from North Africa, and it was to track down an international drug trafficker. I didn't expect them to have a master in their midst, and I got injured. Huaijuan smiled bitterly at this point. I guess I was lucky, though. They thought I was dead when they saw me fall down, but Armadillo and the others, Armadillo? What's wrong with him? Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. Armadillo sacrificed himself. Huaijuan said, a little dejected. What? Lin Yi's face turned into a terrifying grim, Armadillo, that little guy who always had that bright smile on his face. Who would have thought that a comrade who'd fought alongside him 2 years ago would die just like that? Huaijuan could empathize with Lin Yi's emotion. Armadillo was Lin Yi's comrade, and Huaijuan's comrade as well. Huaijuan couldn't help but cry when he heard the news of Armadillo's death. Maybe he's still alive. Huaijuan said, worried that Lin Yi would be sad. You didn't find his body? A glimmer of hope flashed across Lin Yi's eyes. Armadillo was a smart fella, and it was possible that he could have escaped death. His body was thrown into the furnace by the drug dealers. I didn't know about it until later. Huaijuan sighed. I was in so much pain when I woke up that I couldn't care less about anything else. I found a place to hide, and lost consciousness after that, until someone rescued me. Fuck his ancestors. Lin Yi slammed his fist on the coffee table in front of him, and Lin Yi smashed it into a pile of sawdust. Huaijuan clicked his tongue inwardly. As expected of an eagle, he was still as fierce as ever. Huaijuan knew that he wouldn't be able to do something like that himself. I'm sorry, I was too heavily injured, and I couldn't check on my comrades. Huaijuan said, guilt filling his heart every time he thought about it. It's not your fault. Lin Yi shook his head. He knew that Huaijuan would only be courting death if he went up there. Are your injuries serious? Full of injuries. I retired after half a year of recuperation. Huaijuan sighed. Western medicine calls it sequela, Eastern medicine calls it broken meridians. You can't be agitated, and you can't engage in high-intensity work for a long period of time. Moreover, you have to use medication to maintain it. Lin Yi put the pangolin thing to the back of his mind and turned to Huaijuan. Give me your hand. What are you doing? Huaijuan asked curiously, but extended his hand anyway. Let me feel your pulse. Lin Yi said as he placed his hand on Huaijuan's wrist, his expression solemn. You can feel my pulse. No way, Ing, I thought you were good at killing, but you know how to save people. Huaijuan stared at Lin Yi, a little surprised. This was his comrade in arms in a storm of bullets. There's a lot you don't know. Lin Yi said with a smile. What, you don't trust me? Don't trust me? Huaijuan's eyes widened. Of course I trust you. I could have left my back to you on the battlefield. Don't make it sound so mushy. Lin Yi said jokingly, but his heart was getting heavier and heavier. Huaijuan's pulse was bad, and he could feel that his body had recovered, but his internal injuries were still very serious. Many of his organs weren't fully healed yet, and were even showing signs of weakening. How is it? My body's alright, right? Huaijuan asked curiously, seeing that Lin Yi had really felt his pulse. You only use painkillers to solve your problems. Lin Yi didn't answer the question. Yeah, what's wrong with it? Huaijuan asked. Then why aren't you dead yet? Lin Yi said with a frown. Huaijuan was speechless. What the fuck, are you cursing me? It's not that I'm cursing you, but you're in a really bad situation right now. The injuries from last time haven't healed at all, and they're getting worse. I don't know how you've been using painkillers for so long, but someone else would have died from the pain a long time ago. Lin Yi said with a serious expression on his face. He wasn't trying to scare Huaijuan, he was just stating a fact. There was no need to lie to someone like Huaijuan. He'd been on the battlefield long ago, and he'd long since given up on life and death. Even if Lin Yi were to tell him that he was going to die tomorrow, Huaijuan wouldn't have much of a reaction. An old Eastern doctor said the same thing, saying that I wouldn't be able to live past 6 months. Look at me, aren't I? As expected, Huaijuan wasn't affected by Lin Yi's words at all. He was stretching his arms and legs in a relaxed manner. He's right, half a year is too much for you. Lin Yi nodded. Eagle, can you stop mocking me? Do I look like someone who's about to die? Huaijuan glared at Lin Yi, a little displeased. My name's Lin Yi, don't call me Eagle. Lin Yi said as he looked at Huaijuan. That's why I said it's a miracle that you're still alive, and it might have something to do with your strong willpower. What's wrong with that? Huaijuan continued. You can still use painkillers to alleviate the pain, but it'll only get worse in the future. Lin Yi said. You might have noticed it by now, but the frequency and dosage of the painkillers has increased. You really know medicine? Huaijuan asked, surprised that Lin Yi had hit the nail on the head. What do you think? Lin Yi said as he let go of Huaijuan's hand. He had a rough idea of what was going on. Huaijuan's situation was very complicated. There was a saying that all medicines had some side effects, and every herb would damage the body's organs to a certain degree. In other words, if Lin Yi were to prescribe a medicine for the heart, it'd affect Huaijuan's spleen or liver, but if he were to prescribe a medicine for the liver, it'd affect his heart or kidney. All in all, there'd be side effects to the other organs no matter which part he treated. It'd be better if he didn't treat it, and it'd only speed up his death. Huaijuan couldn't help but ask when he saw Lin Yi deep in thought. What's wrong? What are you thinking about? Chapter 61. A girl he'll never forget. Holy shit. Huaijuan slapped his thigh as he looked at Lin Yi. Not bad, not bad. You're the captain of the hounds after all. The army invited the most famous Eastern medicine specialist in the country, Elder Chen Shueji, to see me after I got injured. He said the same thing after looking at me. Chen Shueji. Lin Yi felt like he'd heard the name before, but couldn't remember where he'd heard it from. Yeah, he was the one who said I wouldn't live past 6 months. Huaijuan said with a smile. He told me not to treat it if I wanted to die slower. Maybe I'd live a couple more days with painkillers. What kind of bullshit is that? Lin Yi couldn't help but frown. I'll go back and think about it. I'll come up with a plan as soon as I can, but I can write you a prescription first. It'll be better than Western painkillers, and the side effects won't be as bad. With that, Lin Yi walked over to Huaijuan's desk and grabbed a pen and paper. He quickly wrote down a prescription and handed it to Huaijuan. You'd better get this prescription yourself, and don't let anyone else know about it. Also, I don't want anyone else to know about my past, so don't bring it up again. It really works. Eagle, you've given me such a big surprise. Huaijuan said as he took the prescription from Lin Yi's hands. He stared blankly at the dense list of Eastern medicine names on it. It couldn't have been written randomly. Most people wouldn't even be able to write down the names of the Eastern medicine. I told you, don't call me Eagle. I'm Lin Yi. Lin Yi corrected. Alright, Lin Yi. Huaijuan nodded as he put the prescription away carefully. It was a prescription from his former captain and comrade, and Huaijuan trusted it unconditionally. He'd die if he didn't take it, and who knew how long he'd be able to live for. You're really a god, no wonder Xiaoning is so tiny. Hearing this name, the smile on Lin Yi's face suddenly froze. After a long time, he raised his head and said, She still remembers me? She asked about you the last time I saw her. Huaijuan said with a nod. Perhaps I'm just casually asking. Lin Yi bitterly smiled. The two of them were people from two different worlds and it was impossible for them to be intertwined. Even if they were to be intertwined, they were destined to be separated. There was no such thing as equality between people. Lin Yi understood this very well. At least for now, Lin Yi didn't have the ability to give her a future. Are you trying to shirk your responsibility? Huaijuan's expression was agitated as he glared at Lin Yi. Huaijuan's weird reaction surprised Lin Yi, but Lin Yi seemed to understand something in an instant. You, like her? Huaijuan fell silent under Lin Yi's question. After a while, he finally spoke up. There wasn't a single person in the suicide squad who didn't have feelings for her, but this was also an acknowledgement of his thoughts. She's quite a good match for you. Lin Yi knew about Huaijuan's parentage. They were a good match, weren't they? What do you mean? Huaijuan jumped up as if his foot had been stepped on. He pointed at Lin Yi with a dark expression. What kind of person do you think I am? You can't bully a friend's wife. I, Hound, wouldn't do something like that no matter how much of an asshole I am. She's not my wife. Lin Yi said faintly with a shake of his head. Alright, I'm leaving. I'll leave Lingshan's matter to you. I'm sure it won't be a problem. With that, Lin Yi stood up and walked towards the door. I really want to kill you. Huaijuan said as he aimed a punch at Lin Yi's back. Lin Yi didn't even turn his head as he grabbed his arm. As long as you can do it. Huaijuan knew that the gap between him and Lin Yi wasn't small at all, and he let go of Huaijuan's arm dispiritedly. Lin Yi, on the other hand, let go of Huaijuan's arm and walked out of the office. Lin Yi's expression didn't change much, but his thoughts couldn't help but wander back to the days of war. The girl he met and parted with in his life. These 2 years, Lin Yi would often wake up from his training at night, sweating profusely every time. This was something that Lin Yi hadn't experienced ever since he started practicing the art of dragon mastery. But those melancholy eyes were like a demon in his heart, filling up Lin Yi's nights. Lin Yi couldn't help but wake up from his training every time he saw that sad and resentful gaze. It was a never-ending nightmare. Had he really forgotten about her? Obviously not. She was a girl that any man would never be able to forget for the rest of their lives. But Lin Yi knew very well that her radiance didn't belong to him. If the 17-year-old Lin Yi still had a trace of arrogance in him, the current Lin Yi understood the cruelty of reality. Going to her would only bring trouble to her and the people around her. They weren't of the same social class, and a nobody hitting on a princess was bullshit. From the moment Lin Yi was taken away by the police, Chief Chen's phone never stopped ringing. First, it was the headmaster of first school, Ding Bingong. Chief Chen was very careful with Ding Bingong's calls, and promised him that he'd investigate the matter thoroughly. However, the people who called later were getting more and more important. First, it was Peng Zhan's Uncle Fu, and now, it was Peng Zhan himself. Chief Chen had no choice but to call Ling Shan, urging her to solve the case as soon as possible. She had to be fair and just, and he couldn't let people talk behind his back. But the news he got from Ling Shan was that Huaijuan had just come back and taken Lin Yi away. Chief Chen had no choice but to call Huaijuan again. What? He's released already? Chief Chen was startled. Wasn't this Huaijuan a little too fast? Yeah, it was a gang that came to the school to wreak havoc, and it had nothing to do with Lin Yi. I told him to go back after I understood the situation. Huaijuan reported in his usual professional tone. As long as you're fine. Chief Chen sighed in relief. He could answer to Bingong and Peng Zhan now. Chapter 62. A secret talk. Ling Shan blinked oddly at the calm and collected Huaijuan. She couldn't hold it in any longer. Captain Yang, do you know Lin Yi? He looks like a friend of mine. I got too excited and made a mistake. Huaijuan said with a smile. I hope you didn't get scared. Since Lin Yi didn't want him to reveal his identity, Huaijuan couldn't say too much. No. Ling Shan shook her head. What kind of friend could make Captain Yang lose his composure like that, but she didn't ask. Lin Yi was just about to flag down a taxi when Faubert's Bentley stopped beside him. Faubert poked his head out. "Get in, Mr. Lin." Lin Yi nodded, not bothering with pleasantries as he walked over and opened the door to the front passenger seat. He was surprised to find another man in the back seat, Punjan. "Hello, Uncle Chu." Lin Yi greeted politely. "Are you all right, Lin Yi?" Punjan asked, a kind smile on his face as he looked at Lin Yi. Lin Yi had always thought that Punjan was being a little too nice to him. Was there some sort of secret behind all this, or? But since Punjan wasn't going to talk about it, Lin Yi didn't press the issue. "It's nothing, just a couple of Communist Party members trying to cause trouble at school. I taught them a lesson, and the police let me go after understanding the situation." "That's good." Punjan nodded. "Yao Yao's situation, it's all thanks to you. I just heard about what happened yesterday from Li Fu. You did a great job. It's what I should do." Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't think much of it. He'd taken Punjan's money for free, after all. "Right, how are you getting along with Yao Yao? She didn't kick you out again, did she?" Punjan felt a headache coming on at the thought of his daughter. "No, Yao Yao is very easy to get along with." Lin Yi smiled. Naturally, he wouldn't tell on Meng Yao in front of Punjan. That would be pure idiocy. No matter how naughty Meng Yao was, Punjan had nothing but love for her. It'd be hell if he got fired for talking like that, and so he decided to praise Meng Yao at the right time. When Faubert heard Lin Yi's words, he opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. "Hee, are you getting along well?" Punjan seemed to be very happy with Lin Yi's words, a gratified smile on his face. "Yao Yao is actually a good kid, just a little headstrong. You just have to give in to her a little more." "Don't worry, Uncle Chu, I will." Lin Yi agreed without hesitation, but he remembered what the Baldy had said in the robber's car yesterday. "Uncle Chu, there's something I should talk to you about." Lin Yi hesitated before deciding to talk to Punjan. "There's something I should tell you, Uncle Chu." "Oh." Punjan paused, then smiled. "What is it?" "Just say it." "It's about what happened yesterday. It's about the bank robbery." Lin Yi said. "How about this, let's find a place to talk about it." Faubert isn't an outsider, but he's driving. I don't want him to be distracted. Punjan nodded. Okay. It seemed like Lin Yi wouldn't be able to go to school today, so he might as well not go. "Mr. Chu, are we going home?" Faubert asked. "Yes, let's go home, to the villa by the bay," Punjan ordered. The villa by the bay was Punjan's private villa, but he was always busy with business and didn't go home often. Most of the time, the villa was empty. Meng Yao, on the other hand, lived in Punjan's villas in the city for the convenience of going to school. The villas were built by Punjan Industries, and Meng Yao, of course, lived here because Yushu lived here as well. The two had been best friends since elementary school, and their relationship couldn't get any tighter than that. Punjan's villa, on the other hand, was built in the suburbs, taking up a large piece of empty land. It was surrounded by green grass and flowers, and there was a road in the middle that led to the main building of the villa. Of course, this was private property, and outsiders weren't allowed to enter. Upon entering the door, Faubert shone a laser card on the door, and the door opened slowly. Lin Yi glanced at the brand of the door opener. It should be the most advanced rolling code opening system in the world. Even if the card was lent to someone else, it wouldn't be able to be duplicated. The code between the door opening system and the card was unique, and the MCU in the card calculated the code and fed it back to the door opening system. But it wasn't unbreakable. Of course, Lin Yi didn't mention it, because this was considered very safe for civilians. But, if yesterday's incident wasn't investigated properly, then Lin Yi would have to do some security upgrades to Meng Yao's villa. He couldn't guarantee that he'd be by Menyao's side 24 hours a day. The car stopped in front of the villa, and Faubert got out. He opened the door for Pengzhan and Lin Yi, and returned to the car after Lin Yi and Pengzhan got out. Faubert isn't coming in with us. Lin Yi heard from Pengzhan that Faubert wasn't an outsider, so he asked. He's going to park the car in the garage, and he'll be back soon. Pengzhan could tell what Lin Yi was thinking, and he patted Lin Yi's shoulder with a smile. Li Fu has been with me for more than 10 years. If there's anything urgent when I'm not around, you can just tell Faubert. Lin Yi nodded. Faubert must be a very trustworthy person if Pengzhan said so. The decorations in the villa couldn't be considered luxurious, but it wasn't the kind of luxurious ones. Instead, it leaned towards elegance and classicalness. It could be seen that Pengzhan was a person with good taste, different from the average nouveau riche. Sit anywhere, don't be shy, treat this like your own home. Pengzhan personally found a pair of slippers for Lin Yi, and placed it in front of Lin Yi. This action, on the other hand, made Lin Yi feel a little flattered. But, the more he thought about it, the more he felt that Pengzhan was being too close to him. It didn't seem like he was treating a subordinate like this, but more like he was treating his own family. Thank you, Uncle Chu. Lin Yi didn't act too pretentiously. He put on the slippers after thanking Pengzhan. Chapter 63. The mastermind, alright, let's talk in the study. Pengzhan gestured with his hand as he led Lin Yi to the second floor. The study was at the end of the second floor, perhaps because they didn't want to be disturbed, but there wasn't even a housekeeper in this spacious villa. What difference did it make? Perhaps this villa had once been bustling and glorious, but now it was completely deserted. This was what Lin Yi noticed when he went upstairs. The villa was very clean, but there were signs of wear and tear on the handrails. This meant that someone had lived in this villa for a long time, unlike now, where Pengzhan rarely came back once a week. But Lin Yi, naturally, wouldn't ask about this. This was Pengzhan's family business, and it had nothing to do with Lin Yi. As a result, Lin Yi maintained a calm attitude, unfazed in the face of danger. The wear and tear on the leather chair in the study was proof of that as well. Pengzhan must have sat in this chair a lot in the past. Take a seat, Yi. Pengzhan said as he sat down on the leather chair behind the desk. He gestured to Lin Yi. There's a fresher cabinet in the back, there's drinks in there. Take whatever you want. Don't worry, it won't expire. Li Fu will replace it regularly. I'm not thirsty. Lin Yi shook his head. Uncle Chu, let's get down to business first. Alright, let's begin. Pengzhan nodded, signaling for Lin Yi to begin. It's like this, I'm sure you already know that the robbers yesterday weren't after the bank, but Miss Chu. Lin Yi said. I don't understand why they'd go through so much trouble to kidnap Miss Chu. It would have been easier to kidnap her from the school or the villa. Are you trying to remind me to investigate the true purpose of these people? Pengzhan said with a smile. Indeed, you're right, they might have gone through a lot of trouble to kidnap Miss Chu, but they have a reason for it. What reason? Lin Yi didn't think that Pengzhan would have thought of this, it seemed like he was overthinking things. Confuse. Pengzhan put away his smile and said seriously, this way, people will think that they didn't kidnap Yao Yao, but used her as a hostage during the bank robbery. These were two different natures that could mislead the police's investigation. This way, the police would see this case as a robbery and not a kidnapping case. This would give the robbers enough time to make their next move. But, what I don't understand is, how did they calculate Yao Yao would appear in the bank at that time? I've done some analysis on this. Yesterday, the school instructed everyone to apply for a bank card so that they can deposit their tuition fees. After school ends, the banks will close for the day. There's only one 24-hour bank in the vicinity, so if Miss Chu wants to apply for a bank card, she'll definitely go to that bank. Lin Yi voiced his thought. He hadn't thought of what Peng Zhan had said before, since he didn't know what these people's true intentions were, or what they really wanted. So Peng Zhan's words gave Lin Yi an idea. These people are after you? Probably. Peng Zhan nodded. This time, when I went to negotiate the contract, the other party gave a lot of harsh conditions, and I didn't agree to them. They didn't make any concessions, either, they just kept dragging it out, as if they were waiting for something. Now that I think about it, Yao Yao's incident happened at that time, and these two things might be related. Oh. Lin Yi raised an eyebrow. So that's the case. No wonder Peng Zhan said that these people robbed the bank to mislead the police's investigation. After all, if the direction of the investigation was wrong, the time needed to solve the case would be delayed, and this would give the robbers more time. If what Peng Zhan said was true, then as long as the robbers hinted that Meng Yao was in their hands, wouldn't Peng Zhan obediently sign that unfair contract? The more I think about it, the more likely it is. It's just that I don't have any evidence. Peng Zhan sighed, but, at this level, what can evidence do? Who are these people? Lin Yi understood immediately after hearing Peng Zhan's words. The robbers must be on par with Peng Zhan in terms of strength, otherwise they wouldn't have dared to do something like this. No wonder the Baldy said that he wouldn't let Ma Lu touch Meng Yao other than Meng Yao. He was probably just trying to scare Peng Zhan. If Ma Lu really did touch Meng Yao, Peng Zhan would probably go all out for revenge, even if he didn't care about the consequences. It would be a lose-lose situation, and the robbers obviously didn't want that to happen. Lin Yi let out a sigh of relief at the thought. The robbers didn't want to do anything to Meng Yao, so Meng Yao's safety wasn't a problem at all. You don't have to worry about this, I'll take care of it. Humph, I, Peng Zhan, am no pushover, trying to use this kind of method to force me to submit. Peng Zhan paused here and waved his hand. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Just take good care of Yao Yao, remember to give her some love. Her mother left when she was young. And I'm always busy with my business. I lack love. Peng Zhan sighed. Her mother left when she was young. Lin Yi sighed to himself. The miss was really pitiful, losing her mother at a young age and having a busy father all day. What was the difference between that and having no parents at all? Lin Yi was an orphan as well. Naturally, he could understand the bitterness of the situation. He nodded. Don't worry, Uncle Chu, I can understand Miss Chu's feelings, forgive me. What an evil word game. When Lin Yi heard Peng Zhan say that Meng Yao's mother left, he thought that her mother had passed away. The word left did indeed have that meaning. But in reality, what Peng Zhan meant was that the Mrs. Mother had really left, not died. That's why Lin Yi made such a huge mistake. Yes, that's why I asked you to come and keep her company, you too. Forget it, let's not talk about this for now. It's a bit sudden to talk about it now, it's not too late to talk about it in the future. Peng Zhan hesitated, deciding to talk to Lin Yi about his father and elder Lin's decision later. He was afraid that Lin Yi wouldn't be able to accept it right now. Lin Yi didn't know what Peng Zhan wanted to say, but since he said to talk about it later, Lin Yi couldn't ask anymore. He could only wait for Peng Zhan to take the initiative to tell him. Since these people aren't after Miss Chu's life, then I'm relieved. Lin Yi thought to himself. It'd be terrible if the miss died beside him. Not only would he lose his salary, but he'd also have to take responsibility for it. More importantly, no one had died beside him before. Chapter 64. Quick detection. Faubert's voice came from outside the study not long after the two were done talking about Meng Yao's family. Lin Yi wasn't sure if he'd waited for the two to finish their conversation before knocking, or if he'd just happened to come up at that moment. Peng Zhan had said that Faubert was a trustworthy person, but Lin Yi had the feeling that Peng Zhan was hiding something from him. He'd asked Lin Yi to accompany Meng Yao not just for a study companion, a babysitter, and a bodyguard, but for a deeper reason. Peng Zhan didn't say what it was, and Lin Yi believed that Faubert wasn't privy to it either. Peng Zhan was probably the only one who knew. "Mr. Chu, I've parked the car. May I come in?" "Come in, I was just talking to Yi about yesterday's incident," Peng Zhan said. Faubert pushed the door open and sat down on the sofa beside Lin Yi. "We were talking about why the kidnappers chose the bank earlier, and Yi said that it's because the school requires every student to get a bank card to save their tuition and fees." Peng Zhan continued the topic when he saw Faubert come in. "From this, we can see that there's someone in Yao Yao's school. The kidnappers wouldn't have chosen this time to rob a bank." "Yes." Lin Yi nodded. "That's what I was thinking, too. Besides, I think this person should be a staff member of the school, not a student. Only a staff member would know about these things beforehand, and by the time the students knew about it, it'd already be time for school to end. It'd be too late for the kidnappers to make preparations." "Not bad." Peng Zhan nodded approvingly, pleased with Lin Yi's intelligence. "I'll look into the school as well. But never mind, let's not talk about that. What, is there a problem? Isn't Uncle Chu one of the directors of the school?" Lin Yi asked curiously. "Shouldn't it be easier for Peng Zhan to look into things in the school?" "I'm a trustee, yes, but there are 3 trustees in the school, and each of them owns a portion of the school's shares. You can imagine how difficult it would be to investigate." Peng Zhan didn't hide it from Lin Yi, since it wasn't anything confidential. "I see. I'll keep an eye out when I go to school then," Lin Yi said after listening to Peng Zhan's explanation. At this point, Lin Yi had a general idea of what was going on. The kidnappers didn't want Meng Yao for money or her life, but they wanted to use Meng Yao to force Peng Zhan to compromise on their business partnership. Moreover, the kidnappers did not choose other places to carry out the kidnapping completely to confuse the police and delay time. If Peng Zhan's daughter had been kidnapped, one could only imagine how much effort the police would put into searching for the kidnappers. Meng Yao would have been found by the police before they could achieve their goal. It was true that Huaijuan had taken over the bank robbery case as soon as he'd returned to the criminal police, but the case was a piece of cake for Huaijuan. Huaijuan made a call to the city's command center, and pulled up the surveillance footage from the streets around the bank yesterday. Ling Shan only realized how stupid she was at this point. Digital Qingguan had only been used in Songshan for less than a month, but Huaijuan's sharp senses had memorized all this information. Digital Qingguan, also known as Digital City Management, referred to the use of information technology and mobile communication technology to process, analyze, and manage all of the city's components and incidents. It was an information technology that promoted the modernization of city management. The city management department had installed surveillance cameras on every main street, monitoring the area around the clock to monitor the sanitation, traffic flow, and so on. Ling Shan had thought of going to the traffic police to get the recordings, but unfortunately, the traffic police's recording equipment only worked and the traffic lights were red, and they could only record cars that broke the rules. The equipment was off at other times. Ling Shan had no choice but to give up. What she didn't expect was for Huaijuan to think of using the surveillance footage to solve the case. It seemed simple enough, but it only meant one thing: she wasn't careful enough. Things that seemed to be insignificant to the job often played an unexpected role at the critical moment. With the surveillance video, everything became much easier. Because the city management's round-the-clock surveillance camera had just been activated recently, it was still in the trial stage. Not many people knew about it, so the kidnappers couldn't possibly know about it. In fact, they didn't know about it either. On the road that Zhang Xiaohang was responsible for, not long after the first Song A74110 car left, a second commercial van with the license plate of Song A74110 passed by. Without a doubt, this was the car that the robbers were in. What happened next was that they followed the clues and locked onto the approximate location of the kidnapper's car. The reason for the approximate location was because the surveillance cameras were only installed in the city, and not in some of the more secluded streets. They could only use the footage to determine the location of the kidnappers. But even so, it was more than enough. The search was much easier now that the area had been narrowed down to a certain extent. Pin Liang had been in a state of panic the entire day. He didn't think that a country bumpkin transfer student would be this strong. He'd been pissed off yesterday, and now he'd beaten up one of the school's bosses, Zhou Ruoming. He'd thought that Zhou Ruoming was going to die a horrible death, but it was Heibao Bro he'd found that got beaten up. Pin Liang finally understood the difference in strength. Heibao Bro couldn't beat Lin Yi even with a gun, so what could he possibly do? But, he couldn't act too weak in front of Naipeo and Xiaofu too. He hated Lin Yi to the bone, but he was also scared to the bone. Normal methods wouldn't work on Lin Yi, and he'd have to think of something else if he wanted revenge. Liang Bro, why's this Lin Yi so strong? Xiaofu said, a little displeased. But isn't that Heibao Bro a little too weak? I thought he'd be more capable, but he's about the same as us yesterday. Yeah, he's such a coward with a gun. If I were him, I'd shoot that Lin Yi kid. Naipeo said angrily. Xiaofu and Naipeo had never been in the underworld before, and they'd only heard Pin Liang talk about how strong Heibao Bro was. They didn't think much of it after seeing him today. Chapter 65. Chapter 65, Do you like him? Zhou Ruoming was just as shocked. Zhou Ruoming decided to keep his distance from Lin Yi after seeing how half-dead Heibao Bro was. The guy was a madman, and Zhou Ruoming didn't want to die just yet. It was a little depressing for him, the second in command of the school, to be afraid of a transfer student. Zhou Ruoming, on the other hand, thought that they'd mind their own business and mind their own business. As long as he didn't provoke Lin Yi, it shouldn't affect him, right? Zhou Ruoming couldn't help but feel pleased at the thought that motherfucker Pin Liang had nothing better to do than provoke a transfer student. He hadn't even gotten to the bottom of the guy's background yet, and he was already trying to mess with Pin Liang. Was he tired of living? Hey, Yao Yao, do you think Lin Yi's going to be okay? That Ling Shan's acting all high and mighty, it's like she's trying to mess with Lin Yi on purpose. Yushu whispered to Meng Yao, who was flipping through her English textbook. Who cares, it's better if he gets arrested and sentenced. He won't have to bother me anymore. Meng Yao humphed. My dad's saving his salary too. You really don't care about him? Yushu looked at Meng Yao with a half-smile. Shu, what's with that look? Meng Yao frowned. Why would I care about him? Alright, let's not talk about him. I still need to study. Oh, alright. Yushu pointed at the English textbook in Meng Yao's hands with a smile. Yao Yao, you're holding your English book upside down. You've been reading for so long, you're really something. Ah. Meng Yao blushed as she looked at the book in her hands. She quickly closed the book in a panic and glanced at Yushu before opening it again. She pouted. Alright, I just don't want anything to happen to him because of me. After all, I'm the one who started this. I'm the one who told him to deal with Pin Liang. I've already called Faubert. He'll take care of it. Ha. Yushu smiled, but her face was full of doubt. Yushu's smile made Meng Yao feel a little uncomfortable. She shrunk her neck, feeling that Yushu was staring at her with a burning gaze. However, Yao suddenly thought of something. Oh right, on the other hand, student Shu, you seem to be more concerned about Lin Yi than I am. Have you fallen for him? Me? Yeah, I like him, so what? Yushu grinned at Meng Yao as if it wasn't something embarrassing. Yushu let out a breath of relief when she heard that Meng Yao had contacted Faubert. She knew what Faubert was capable of in Songshan, and she'd wanted to call her grandpa. Huh? Meng Yao's mouth was agape as she stared at Yushu in disbelief. You. You like him? Ha, I like him. Why are you in such a hurry? Can't even speak properly. Are you jealous? Yushu giggled as she looked at Menyao's face. Jealous? If you like him, then go after him. I bet that guy's so pretty he's got snot coming out of his nose. Menyao's expression changed to one of disapproval. All right. Then I'll go after him. Don't regret it later. Yushu said with a serious face. Who'll regret it, haha. Menyao shook her head nonchalantly, but the words made her feel a little uncomfortable. She didn't know why, but it made her feel uneasy. I'm lying. Haha. Yushu didn't continue after seeing that she wasn't teasing Menyao. I just don't like Ling Shan. She can't touch one of our people if she wants to. Yeah. Lin Yi may be my follower, but he's still one of my people. Menyao didn't know why, but she let out a sigh of relief after hearing Yushu's explanation. It was an inexplicable feeling, but Menyao didn't think too much about it. Pinliang looked calm and collected in front of Naipeo and Xiaofu, but he was actually more afraid than anyone else. It wasn't that he was afraid of Lin Yi's revenge, but that Heibao Bro would drag him out of the police station. He'd become the mastermind of the whole thing, and who knew if he'd be dragged into this. His father would definitely punish him severely, and he might even have to transfer schools. Pinliang was getting more and more annoyed when he saw Menyao and Yushu talking and laughing not too far away. He was a famous person in the school, but he didn't even have a girlfriend. What a joke. Zhou Ruoming, on the other hand, had gone through so many girlfriends by now that he was a tyrant in the school. He heard that he was going after some commoner beauty, Tang Yun. Truth be told, Pinliang only started paying attention to Tang Yun after hearing that Zhou Ruoming was going after her. She was a beautiful girl, and although she was wearing a school uniform, it couldn't hide her beauty. Compared to princesses like Menyao and Yushu, however, she was still a little lacking. Menyao and Yushu were from prestigious families, and they had luxurious cars to and from school. Tang Yun, on the other hand, wasn't as eye-catching as Menyao and Yushu. Menyao and Yushu were from prestigious families, and they had luxurious cars to and from school. Tang Yun, on the other hand, wasn't that eye-catching. Her body was even better than Menyao and Yushu's, but Menyao and Yushu's statuses were higher than theirs. Pinliang, on the other hand, wasn't afraid of other flies getting to her first. In this school, he was the only one who dared to go after Menyao. As a result, Pinliang wasn't in a rush. He had enough patience to take Menyao down. It was just that Lin Yi's appearance had ruined his original plan. He'd called Heibao Bro to school in a fit of rage, not caring about the consequences, and even more so when Heibao Bro pulled out his gun. Everything had changed in an instant, from a gangster wreaking havoc in school to a gang member with a gun. Pinliang was afraid that Heibao Bro wouldn't be able to take it anymore, and if that happened, he might not even be able to stay in school, let alone pursue Menyao. Lin Yi walked out of the police station, and looked at his phone. It was already 11 in the afternoon. There weren't any classes at this time, and he was worried about Huijuan's injury. He'd come in a hurry, and he hadn't brought any Eastern medicine books with him. Lin Yi hesitated, and hailed a taxi. To the biggest bookstore in the city. Young man, the biggest bookstores in the city are Xinhua Bookstore and Shuihai Bookstore. They're about the same size, but what kind of books are you looking for? The taxi driver asked. Oh. What's the difference between the two bookstores? I'm looking for medical books. Lin Yi's old man had brought his books back from the city, and he'd never bought them himself. Chapter 66. The Dean of Medicine Lin Yi parked his car in front of Scholar C bookstore, surprised that they'd pass by Songshan First High School on the way. The school was only one stop away from the bookstore, and he'd be able to walk back to school after buying the books. Lin Yi paid the driver and walked into Scholar C bookstore. He made a beeline for the medical section after asking the salesperson at the door for directions. There weren't many people in the bookstore at this hour, and even fewer in the medical section. There was only an old man who looked like a pedant flipping through some books in front of a bookshelf. Lin Yi followed the labels on the shelf and found the book he was looking for. There were a couple of uncommon herbs in there, and Lin Yi wanted to confirm them. Huaijuan's internal injuries were complicated, and his bodily functions had been completely messed up under the effects of the painkillers. He didn't know why he wasn't dead yet, but there had to be a master taking care of his body. After all, Huaijuan's family was a force to be reckoned with. "You like Eastern medicine, young man?" He didn't know when, but the old man had walked up to Lin Yi, looking at the book in Lin Yi's hands as he asked. "I've done some research." Lin Yi smiled and nodded at the old man. "Are you a student from a medical university nearby, young man?" The old man didn't seem like he was going to let the matter drop. "No, I'm a student from Songshan First High School." Lin Yi replied casually. He didn't dislike the old man at all, he could tell that the old man was the academic type. Lin Yi wouldn't have bothered to say a word to the old man if he were the type of person who'd use conversation to achieve his goals. "Oh. A high school student?" The old man was a little taken aback by Lin Yi's words. There were very few young people who were interested in Eastern medicine these days. There were some students from medical universities who'd come to the bookstore to look up information for exams, but they didn't have much interest in Eastern medicine. He'd been looking for a disciple to inherit his legacy all these years, but to no avail. He didn't expect to meet a high school student who was interested in traditional Chinese medicine in the bookstore. There were quite a lot of students in the medical college who studied traditional Chinese medicine, but most of them were inclined to Western medicine. They just wanted to broaden their knowledge by studying traditional Chinese medicine. They never thought about making traditional Chinese medicine their future career and research direction, which made Guan Xuemin very disappointed. To inherit his legacy, he must first be interested in TCM. If he felt that Western medicine was better than TCM, how could he talk about inheriting his legacy? "Young man, which do you think is better, traditional Chinese medicine or Western medicine?" Guan Xuemin couldn't help but ask. "They all have their own strengths, but I'm more inclined towards Chinese medicine." Lin Yi closed the book in his hand and picked up another book next to it. He found the information he wanted and started reading. Western medicine treats the symptoms while Chinese medicine treats the root cause. In some cases, only by treating the symptoms can the root cause be cured. However, it's not a good thing to simply treat the symptoms but not the root cause. Although Lin Yi's words were a bit ambiguous, they truly hit the nail on the head. He wasn't a die-hard traditional Chinese medicine fan. On the contrary, he had a deep understanding of Western medicine. Both had their own strengths and weaknesses. Only by learning from each other could they save the world. "Young man, are you interested in applying to medical college?" Guan Xuemin's love for talent was aroused. The more he looked at Lin Yi, the more he liked him. "I haven't thought about it yet. It depends on my family." Lin Yi indeed hadn't thought about it yet. It wasn't up to him to decide which university to apply to, it was up to his old man and Chu Pengzhan. If he was fired during this period of time, he wouldn't even be able to think about going to university. He would just have to go back to the mountains. "I see." Guan Xuemin was a little disappointed after hearing Lin Yi's words, but he still didn't give up. He took out a business card from his pocket and handed it to Lin Yi. "Young man, this is my business card. You can go back and talk to your parents about it. If you are interested in studying medicine, I can help you with the recommendation procedures. I still have this little bit of authority." Lin Yi heard Guan Xuemin's words and was a little surprised when he received the business card. The dean of Songshan Medical University's School of Traditional Chinese Medicine, Guan Xuemin. After seeing Guan Xuemin's identity, Lin Yi didn't doubt his words anymore. Not to mention the dean of a university, even a dean of a faculty in a school had a lot of authority. Thank you. Although Lin Yi didn't have plans to study medicine, he still took the business card politely. Of course, if you have any questions about traditional Chinese medicine, you can call me, Guan Shuamin said. Although he didn't achieve his goal, Guan Shuamin still hoped that Lin Yi would contact him more often. Okay, Dean Guan. Lin Yi nodded. Guan Shuamin seemed to have something else to do. He took a few books and left, leaving Lin Yi alone to continue reading. Lin Yi didn't think much of this small interlude. When it came to medical skills, who could compare with his old man? He heard that when his old man was young, he casually gave a few pointers to a young traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, and that young traditional Chinese medicine practitioner became a famous one. Of course, this was what Lin Yi heard when his old man was drunk. It didn't matter if it was true or not. But Lin Yi had learned a lot from his old man over the years. After finding what he wanted, Lin Yi put the books back. There was no need to buy them for now. If he brought them back to school, he'd probably attract a lot of attention. Until now, Lin Yi still wanted to keep a low profile. But now, Lin Yi couldn't keep a low profile even if he wanted to. Lin Yi's name had spread all over the school today. On his way back to school, Lin Yi bought a fruit jianbing from a roadside stall. The cafeteria would probably be out of food by now. Lin Yi went straight to the classroom and saw Meng Yao and Yushu both sitting at their seats, still watching Happy Goat and Big Wolf. Yushu looked up at him when he entered the room and poked Meng Yao with her finger. Meng Yao raised her eyelids, but returned to the MP4 in her hands. Lin Yi ignored them and went back to his seat. Hey, Yao, Shield Bro's back. He doesn't look like he's been tortured. Yushu said. She'd read too many novels, thinking that people coming out of the police station would be skinned. Humph, that girl Ling Shan wouldn't do anything to him. She must have been the one who let him out so soon. Meng Yao curled her lips, dissatisfied with Lin Yi's quick return. Heh. Yao, do you think they did that in the police station too? Yushu fantasized. Shu, you're too evil. Meng Yao frowned. Don't disgust me. I don't want to throw up what I ate in the afternoon. Chapter 67. Changing classes. Boss, are you alright? Kong Xiaobo had been in a state of shock the entire morning. The past 2 days had been the most manly he'd ever been in his life. Kong Xiaobo had once seen a post on the internet about things a man should do before the age of 30, one of which was to get into a fight. Kong Xiaobo had thought that he wouldn't be able to do it, but it happened right before the college entrance exams. Kong Xiaobo was in a bad mood during recess, and almost went to the police station with Lin Yi, but Lin Yi stopped him in time with a glance. Lin Yi didn't mind anymore, he was here on a mission from old Lin anymore. It was a mission that didn't make any sense to him. Going to school was secondary, but Kong Xiaobo was different. If this incident were to leave a stain on his life record, it'd be something that would last for a lifetime. It's fine, the police figured it out pretty quickly. Heibao got gangsters to mess with the school. Lin Yi noticed Pinliang's ears pricking up as he spoke. He couldn't help but find it funny. The kid was probably afraid that Heibao would bite him out, wasn't he? That's good. Kong Xiaobo let out a sigh of relief. He didn't go to the police station with Lin Yi in the morning because he was afraid that Lin Yi would blame him for being disloyal. Now that Lin Yi was fine, he was naturally happy. Boss, I'll treat you to something after school. It'll help you get over the shock. After school? We'll talk about it then. Lin Yi glanced at Meng Yao, who was in front of him. He had to go back with them after school. The first class in the afternoon was Ms. Lu's class. Ms. Lu evidently knew that the incident this morning had something to do with Pinliang, but she didn't bring it up. After all, it was best to minimize the incident as much as possible. She didn't want the other students to be affected. The monthly exams are coming up, so let's do a little quiz today. Teacher Lu divided the test papers in her hands into stacks and then distributed them to the students in the front row of each group. She told them to pass them down in turn. In the third year of high school, there was basically a small test every 2 days and a big test every Monday. Many people were already used to it. Although what happened in the morning brought a ripple to the dull and boring study life, there was no extra time to think about things that had nothing to do with study in the short term of high school life. Although what happened in the morning brought endless shock to the first and second year students, for the third year students, it was just a small interlude in their intense study. Of course, the few delinquents who didn't study were an exception. It was an English test paper that was passed to Lin Yi. English was Lin Yi's strong suit. Lin Yi was not only proficient in English, but he was also proficient in many languages around the world. This was also a requirement for the mission. Lin Yi didn't want to show off too much. In this key class of a key high school, maintaining an average standard was enough to get into a good university, so Lin Yi didn't need his results to be too good. After all, it was to accompany Meng Yao to study, and he didn't know when he would finish. So, when Lin Yi answered the questions, he purposely made some mistakes and asked Kong Xiaobo to help him hand it in after class. "Boss, how was the test?" The questions were pretty hard this time. There were a lot of new words that I've never seen before. Kong Xiaobo's results weren't outstanding, it was just average. "It's just so," Lin Yi smiled, "not too good. The education in the city is definitely better than in the village, so the questions will be more difficult." Kong Xiaobo thought that Lin Yi wasn't used to it yet, so he comforted him, "It'll be fine once you get used to it." Okay, Lin Yi nodded, he couldn't explain much to Kong Xiaobo. Although Lin Yi felt that Kong Xiaobo was a good friend, he couldn't tell him about his own matters. After all, they weren't from the same world. During the second class in the afternoon, someone from the teaching office came to inform them that Jifeng was looking for Lin Yi, Pinliang, Gao Xiaofu, and Naipeo. Lin Yi didn't say anything and walked out of the classroom. Kong Xiaobo, on the other hand, was worried that the school would punish Lin Yi because of this. After all, it wouldn't be worth it if he got punished when he was about to graduate. But Lin Yi didn't think that way. First, he had something on Jifeng, and second, he was just accompanying the princess to study. The files were all fake, so he didn't care if they punished him or not. Pinliang's expression changed as he stood up after some hesitation. Xiaofu and Naipeo followed suit, walking out of the room as well. Pinliang stopped at the door and said to the two, "If Jifeng asks about what happened this morning, we'll just say we don't know anything. Just say that Heibao Bro doesn't know what happened with Lin Yi, and that we only know Heibao Bro. He asked us who Lin Yi was, so we pointed it out to him. The rest has nothing to do with us." Gao Xiaofu and Zhang Naipeo were worried that the school would punish them because of this. After all, their family backgrounds weren't as strong as Pinliang's. Pinliang might be fine, but they might become the scapegoats. They nodded immediately upon hearing Pinliang's order. Pinliang looked at Lin Yi's back and clenched his fists hatefully. He'd lost so much face today, and it was all because of this transfer student. He didn't expect Lin Yi to be this strong. It seemed like his usual method of talking with his fists wasn't working anymore. Jifeng, on the other hand, knew that Pinliang and the others were making things up after listening to their story. He'd already gotten news from the police that Heibao was the security captain of Pinliang's father's nightclub. A security captain coming to school to cause trouble for Lin Yi? Jifeng wouldn't believe that this had nothing to do with Pinliang, but he'd asked the principal for permission, and because of Pinliang's family background, he'd decided to keep it low-key. Heibao had already taken responsibility for everything at the police station, and Jifeng didn't need to offend anyone anymore. He told Pinliang and the others a few words before letting them go. When only Lin Yi was left, Jifeng didn't ask about what happened this morning. It was obvious that Lin Yi had nothing to do with it, so there was no need for him to ask. Chapter 68. Bold and visionary words. Jifeng knew that Peng Zhan had introduced Lin Yi to the school, and so he wanted to use this opportunity to get on Lin Yi's good side. After all, the 12th class wasn't just the 12th class, but the 12th class was also the 12th class. Moving Lin Yi to the 6th class would help him avoid further conflicts with Pinliang. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh at the words. The guy was afraid that Pinliang and the others would cause trouble for him again. But Lin Yi's true goal was to keep Meng Yao company. If Meng Yao didn't change classes, he wouldn't be able to do so. Besides, Lin Yi didn't really care about Pinliang and the other clowns. They wouldn't dare cause trouble in front of him anymore. Thank you, Mr. Wang, I'm doing fine in this class. I just got used to the environment, and I don't want to change. Lin Yi rejected Wang Jifeng's kind intentions. I see. Alright then. Don't be too rash in the future. Just report to the school first. The school will take care of it. Wang Jifeng didn't say anything else after Lin Yi's insistence. It seemed that Pinliang and the others would behave themselves for a while after this incident. The English test results came out during the night study session. As expected of an important class in an important school. Even when Kong Xiaobo said that the test was a bit difficult, the total score was 150. There were quite a few students who scored above 130. Kong Xiaobo scored 111, and Lin Yi scored 109. Naturally, Lin Yi did it on purpose. He just wanted his results to be below average in class. He didn't need to draw attention to himself. What surprised Lin Yi, however, was the fact that Meng Yao and Yushu had taken up 2 spots among the students who scored above 130. It seemed that these 2 rich girls weren't idiots after all. Lin Yi thought to himself. Boss, not bad. Your first exam result is not bad. Kong Xiaobo saw that Lin Yi was only 2 points lower than him, and he was secretly surprised. There must be some luck involved. Lin Yi thought to himself. If he had known that this question would be difficult, he would have made a few more mistakes. Let's go eat something tonight. My treat. Kong Xiaobo had talked to Lin Yi about this at noon, but Lin Yi did not agree at that time and said that they would talk about it at night. Let's do it on the weekend. My house is quite far from the campus. If I go back late, there won't be a car, Lin Yi said to Kong Xiaobo apologetically. Oh, that's true. There are only a few buses near the school. Let's talk about it on the weekends. Kong Xiaobo obviously misunderstood Lin Yi's meaning. Lin Yi thought that Kong Xiaobo was a good person, and that he didn't want to lie to him. But Lin Yi didn't want to expose the misunderstanding. Lin Yi really did mean that Meng Yao's villa was quite far from the school, and Faubert's car wouldn't be waiting for him all the time. There would be no car if he went back late. Lin Yi and Kong Xiaobo walked out of the school gate together after school. He watched Meng Yao and Yushu get into Faubert's Bentley from the corner of his eyes before turning to Kong Xiaobo. I'm going, see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Kong Xiaobo was in high spirits today. He'd wanted to have dinner with Lin Yi and drink some wine, but Lin Yi didn't have the time. He had no choice but to give up on the idea. What's the rush? Stand right there. The sudden voice startled Kong Xiaobo. He looked up to see Pinliang, Naipeo, and Xiaofu blocking his way. The one who spoke was Gao Xiaofu. Pinliang called his family during the break and learned that Heibao had taken responsibility for everything, but Pinliang's father still gave him a good scolding. Pinliang was getting more and more pissed off. It was all Lin Yi's fault, and he couldn't afford to offend Lin Yi. All he could do was sulk. Xiaofu came up with a strategy. Since Lin Yi couldn't beat him right now, he could teach that Xiaobo beside him a lesson. The kid had been pretty cocky yesterday on the balcony, and now he'd gone up there and kicked Heibao bro in the crotch. Was he supposed to let him live if they didn't teach him a lesson? Pinliang's eyes lit up. He couldn't afford to piss off Lin Yi, but teaching that coward Kong Xiaobo a lesson would be good too. What? What are you guys doing? Kong Xiaobo had become a man these 2 days, but that was only because he had Lin Yi with him. He was the only one left, and he'd have to be tough even if he wanted to. It was obvious that the three were up to no good, and Kong Xiaobo felt a wave of fear rise in his heart. What are you doing? Don't you know what you've been doing these 2 days? Pinliang smiled coldly as he reached out and patted Kong Xiaobo's face. Kong Xiaobo, I never knew that you were a hidden character. What did I do? Kong Xiaobo knew that even if he begged for mercy, it wouldn't do anything. Since he was already enemies with Pinliang, he might as well go all the way. At most, he'd get beaten up, but he wouldn't be able to kill him. Pfft. You're talking tough, aren't you? Pinliang looked like he had Kong Xiaobo in the bag. What? You dare to do it, but you don't dare to admit it? Or is it because that transfer student's backer is gone, and you're not confident anymore? Pinliang was finally able to vent his anger, but he felt a little sullen when he thought about it. He had to bully a normal student to vent his anger. Kong Xiaobo knew that he wouldn't be able to avoid the beating today. He was going to die either way, and he straightened his neck. Pinliang, if you touch me today, I'll pay you back 10-fold, 100-fold. Come at me if you dare. With that, Kong Xiaobo closed his eyes, looking like he was going to die a martyr's death. Fuck, you're still so stubborn. Interesting. Brothers, what are you waiting for? Let's do it. Pinliang saw that Kong Xiaobo wasn't begging for mercy, so he stopped talking to him. Liang bro. Xiaofu suddenly tugged at Pinliang's sleeve nervously. What's wrong? Pinliang frowned. What's wrong? Xiaofu pointed not far away, panicking. Liang bro, look over there, what? Pinliang looked impatiently at the direction Xiaofu was pointing at, and was shocked to see Lin Yi walking towards him with a smile on his face. But in Pinliang's eyes, that smile looked like the smile of a demon. Why was he back? Didn't he leave already? Pinliang was startled. This Lin Yi was a madman. What was he supposed to do if he waited for Lin Yi to arrive? As humiliated and angry as he was, Pinliang didn't dare fight Lin Yi head-on. Fuck, revenge is a dish best served cold. I'll return the humiliation I received today 100-fold in the future. Chapter 69. Chapter 69, Healing Plan. Pinliang didn't have time to explain as he turned and ran. Xiaofu and Naipeo saw that they weren't a match for Lin Yi, and so they turned and ran as well. Kong Xiaobo closed his eyes and stiffened his neck, ready to die a martyr's death. He waited for a long time, but Pinliang didn't move at all. He opened his eyes, confused, only to see the three running like rabbits, disappearing into a puff of smoke. Ah! Kong Xiaobo froze. What the hell was going on? Could it be that when he'd shaken his body, unleashed his king's aura, and said, I'll pay them back 10 times, 100 times in the future, he'd scared Pinliang and the others away? It couldn't be, could it? Didn't that make him the main character of a novel? A large hand landed on Kong Xiaobo's shoulder just as he was recovering from his shock. Kong Xiaobo jumped and turned around, only to see Lin Yi smiling at him. What are you spacing out for? Ah! Xiaobo paused when he saw Lin Yi. He immediately understood why Pinliang and the others had turned tail and run. It wasn't because he'd unleashed his king's aura, but because Lin Yi was here, and they'd run away. Let's go, there won't be any more cars later. Lin Yi patted Kong Xiaobo's shoulder before turning around and walking to the Faubert's parking spot. Lin Yi and Kong Xiaobo had separated earlier, and he'd noticed that Kong Xiaobo was surrounded by Pinliang and the others. Lin Yi, naturally, knew that Kong Xiaobo wasn't Pinliang's match, and so he went to help him. Kong Xiaobo took a deep breath, wanting to thank him, but Lin Yi was long gone. Kong Xiaobo clenched his fists. When would he become a man like Lin Yi? It had only been 2 days since he'd transferred here, and he'd already taught one of the big four Pinliang a lesson. Lin Yi returned to Faubert's Bentley, a frown on Menyao's face. She didn't say anything about Lin Yi getting in, but Yushu, on the other hand, smiled at Lin Yi. "Shield bro, you're pretty good, huh? Pinliang and the others turned and ran when they saw you." Yushu's words told Lin Yi that she must have seen him helping Xiaobo from the car. Lin Yi smiled, unsure of what to say. "See, Yao Yao. I told you Lin Yi's good at his job, right? With him by your side, Pinliang won't bother you anymore." Yushu tugged at Menyao's hand. "He's not that much stronger than Pinliang." Menyao humphed, puzzled. Was this Lin Yi really that good? Subduing Pinliang in 2 days. Humph, he's probably just a little better at fighting. Lin Yi was already used to Menyao's attitude, and he didn't mind it at all. She was a miss, after all, and it was always hard to please. As long as she didn't find him an eyesore, it was fine. He was here for a mission, after all, and the reward was enough for him to eat for the rest of his life. Back in the villa, Lin Yi remembered the awkward scene from this morning as he looked at the tissue box on the living room table. Yushu was looking at him suspiciously, and Lin Yi knew that this wasn't good. She'd better not come up with something for him to do again. Lin Yi hurried back to his room. He'd looked up some books on medicinal properties and pharmacology in the bookstore today, and Lin Yi wanted to write them down while he still had an idea of how to treat Huijuan. Huijuan's entire body was in a mess under the effects of the medication. It was a combination of Eastern medicine and Western medicine. Huijuan was fine for the time being, but the slightest change in his body could turn into a fatal injury. It was impossible to treat all the damaged organs in one go, and even old Lin didn't have the ability to do so. Besides, he'd learned all of old Lin's teachings. After taking Huijuan's pulse today, Lin Yi had determined that the cause of Huijuan's condition was a broken meridian. The meridians that connected the 5 viscera and 6 bowels of the body were broken, naturally affecting the function of the organs and leading to organ failure. Under these circumstances, Lin Yi decided to start with the damaged meridians first. As long as he could open up all the meridians, the organs would naturally recover. Huiping was only in his 20s, and his body wasn't in a failing phase yet. He could recover on his own. Lin Yi breathed out in relief after writing down a satisfactory prescription and treatment plan. Although Lin Yi was confident that he could help Huijuan recover, he was still a little worried before he could come up with a feasible treatment plan. Lin Yi sighed. The art of dragon mastery he practiced wouldn't be so troublesome if he could let Huijuan practice it. But he'd promised old Lin that he wouldn't tell anyone other than old Lin and his Shifu. Old Lin was Lin Yi's Shifu, but strictly speaking, he was more like a relative. Old Lin's skills weren't weak, but Lin Yi's killer moves were inherited from another Shifu. It was said that his Shifu and old Lin had gone through thick and thin together in the past, and that they'd been through life and death together. Of course, Lin Yi wasn't too clear about these things. He only knew a little about them. A soft sound came from outside the room, and Lin Yi's sharp senses picked it up. Putting away the prescription and treatment plan, Lin Yi quickly dashed to the door. But Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief. It was Faubert delivering dinner, and that sound was probably Faubert opening the door. Lin Yi opened the door and walked out. Faubert. "Mr. Lin, dinner's ready." Faubert nodded to Lin Yi with a smile. Faubert left quickly after delivering dinner, and Mengyao locked the villa's door. She glanced at Lin Yi, who was walking back to his room after helping Yushu lay out the food. She wanted to ask him to join them, but swallowed the words back down her throat. Lin Yi was already in his room while she was hesitating. "Humph, forget it if you don't want to eat." Meng Yao was a little angry. She'd asked him to eat with her yesterday, and now he'd gone back to his room. Lin Yi would have screamed injustice if he knew what Meng Yao was thinking, and it was precisely because he was worried that the little miss wouldn't be agreed. He'd helped Yushu lay out the food and went back to his room, waiting for the two of them to finish eating before he went back to his room. Lin Yi didn't mind the two anymore. It was just like Kong Xiaobo said, there was a line of boys who wanted to eat Meng Yao and Yushu's leftovers at school. You're not going to ask Shield Bro? Yushu had wanted to ask Lin Yi to eat with her, but she wasn't sure if Meng Yao would agree. Ignore him, we'll eat. Meng Yao said angrily at the thought. Oh. Yushu said as she picked up her chopsticks. She pushed an open bottle of orange juice in front of Meng Yao all of a sudden. Yao Yao, this is for me, you can have it. Meng Yao's face darkened at the sight of the orange juice, evidently remembering what happened 2 nights ago. She glared at Yushu. Shu, did you do that on purpose? Nah, I'm just being nice. Yushu blinked innocently with her big, watery eyes. Chapter 70. Chapter 70, Lin Yi's weakness. Meng Yao and Yushu couldn't really eat much, after all. Before Lin Yi came, they'd always be left with more than 3/4 of their food. But for the sake of balanced nutrition, Faubert still stuck to 4 dishes and 1 soup every day, with at least 3 dishes and 1 soup. Even the best chef couldn't make too little of a dish. Not only would it be difficult to control the heat, but it'd also be difficult to control the balance of the seasonings. In order not to affect the taste, it was better to stick to the normal size. Meng Yao found the food tasteless after a couple of bites. Before Lin Yi came, she and Yushu would talk about interesting topics as they ate, and the meal would take more than half an hour. She didn't know why, but the scene of Lin Yi standing up for her at the bank kept popping up in her mind. Was this guy an idiot, or was he serious about his job? There was no point in risking his life for a few tens of thousands, was there? Meng Yao didn't know where her father found a guy like this, but her dislike for Lin Yi seemed to have lessened quite a bit. Was it because he saved her yesterday? Fine, she'd keep him by her side for now. It wasn't a bad idea to have him as a fighter. I'm full. Thinking back to her attitude towards Lin Yi, she felt that it was a bit too much to let him eat her leftovers. What's wrong? Yao Yao, why were you eating so little? Yushu looked at Meng Yao, a little surprised. The girl had only moved her chopsticks a few times, and it was still vegetables. It's nothing, just a little tired. Meng Yao shook her head. I'm going upstairs. Get Lin Yi to eat with you. Ah. Yushu blinked. What was Meng Yao up to? Meng Yao felt a little irritated. The guy she hated the most had saved her yesterday, and now he was putting on airs when she was trying to be nice to him. Humph, forget it if you don't want to eat. I won't eat either. You don't want to eat if you want. Yushu blinked in confusion as she looked at Meng Yao's exhausted figure. Could it be that what happened last night had scared her? That's not right. It's been a day and a night. Isn't his reaction a little too slow? Yushu put down her chopsticks and ran to Lin Yi's room, knocking on the door. Hey, Shield Bro, come out and eat. Lin Yi opened the door and looked at Yushu. You called? Would I call Yao Yao Shield Bro? In this villa, you're the only one who can be called brother, right? Yushu slapped her forehead. Oh, I remember now, General Weiwu, Doggy Bro. Lin Yi was speechless. Comparing himself to a dog. Let's go, time to eat. I'm starving. With that, Yushu walked towards the restaurant. Lin Yi looked at the restaurant, but Meng Yao wasn't there. He followed Yushu in, puzzled. Where's the miss? You said Yao Yao. She said she wasn't hungry, so she took 2 bites and went upstairs. With that, Yushu pointed at the seat Meng Yao had been sitting at. Sit, hurry up and eat. The food's ready for you. Oh. Lin Yi looked at the table, the rice was already in front of him. Since Meng Yao had gone upstairs, Lin Yi didn't need to be courteous. Yushu was a little weird, but it wasn't a big deal. Ga ga. Yushu looked at Lin Yi evilly as he picked up his chopsticks and put a mouthful of food into his bowl, shoving it into his mouth along with the rice. Joy blossomed in her heart, and she clenched her fists under the table. Yay! She'd tell Yao Yao later that she'd avenged her. She ate Lin Yi's saliva yesterday, and today Lin Yi used her chopsticks to eat the leftover rice. Lin Yi ate her saliva, and now they were even. Eat slowly. Here's some water. Yushu handed the orange juice to Lin Yi. Oh, thanks. Lin Yi really did feel like he was choking at Yushu's words. He took 2 sips of the orange juice and realized something was wrong. This orange juice, oh, Meng Yao left after 2 sips, and I didn't want to waste it, so I gave it to you. Yushu said innocently as she looked at Lin Yi. Right, you wouldn't dislike her, would you? You wouldn't go rinse your mouth and vomit too, would you? Oh. Lin Yi replied, expressionless. He knew that Yushu was doing it on purpose, but it wasn't a big deal to Lin Yi. Back in the primeval forest, he'd basically used all his metal as weapons, leaving only a set of tableware for everyone to use. Lin Yi had long since developed this mentality. Plus, not everyone could just eat a beauty's saliva. Maybe that idiot Pinliang would go for Meng Yao's spit if she wanted to, Lin Yi thought evilly. Yushu was a little disappointed that Lin Yi didn't have any reaction, but then she remembered that she'd taken a sip of the orange juice before. Didn't that mean? Yushu couldn't help but blush at the thought. But after diluting Meng Yao's saliva, there shouldn't be anything up there anymore, right? Yushu comforted herself. Yes, that must be it. Hey, shield bro, I'm thirsty. Get me a glass of water. Yushu ordered. She was starting to get a little salty. Go yourself. Lin Yi didn't even raise his eyes as he continued eating. Toilet paper. TV. Yushu coughed. Lin Yi rolled his eyes, this was a secret signal, what was with that? Lin Yi got up helplessly to get Yushu a glass of water. Yushu treated him pretty well, thinking about him even when she was eating. Lin Yi decided to hold it in. If Huijuan knew that Lin Yi was serving the 2 misses all day, he'd probably be laughing his ass off. He poured Yushu a glass of water. Lin Yi knew that her glass was pink, so he was familiar with it. Thanks, shield bro, Yushu said sweetly as she took the glass from Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't say anything as he continued eating. Yushu was thinking that a little coquettish might make Lin Yi more willing, but she didn't think that she'd be showing it to a blind man. It seemed that in Lin Yi's eyes, the braised chicken on the table was prettier than her own. In actuality, Lin Yi wasn't blind. Who wouldn't be tempted by a beauty in front of him? But he was here on a mission, and this was just a short reunion. After the mission was over, everyone would go their separate ways, and they might not meet again for the rest of their lives. Lin Yi didn't want to leave too many emotional ties behind. Besides, he was arranged by Pengzhan to accompany Meng Yao to school. What would happen if he messed with Meng Yao's best friend? One shouldn't be too much of a jerk. Chapter 71. Chapter 71. The mysterious Jade. Lin Yi went to clean the table after dinner. Faubert used to take away the food containers the next morning, and someone would clean them up when they got to the hotel. Lin Yi, however, didn't like the greasy ones, and decided to clean them up. Shield bro, you're a good family man, whoever marries you will be in luck. I'm going upstairs. Yushu encouraged Lin Yi before going upstairs. Marry me. Lin Yi felt a chill run down his spine. His first thought was that this girl had some sort of male chauvinist fetish. But Lin Yi was used to Yushu's weird antics anymore, he didn't say anything about it. Lin Yi put the containers back into the plastic bag before turning off the lights and heading to his room. The second 5-year period was drawing near, and Lin Yi was starting to get impatient. His body had changed a lot after practicing the first stage of the art of dragon mastery, and his meridians were firmer than before. His agility were a lot better than a normal person's as well. In the eyes of a normal person, he'd be a master amongst masters, but this only made Lin Yi more expected. If the first stage was already like that, then what would the second and third stages be like? Besides, what other things would there be behind the stone door of the cave, other than the subsequent parts of the art of dragon mastery? Lin Yi touched the jade pendant in front of his chest. Just this pendant alone was enough to bring him endless benefits if there were other things behind the stone door. Just the thought of it excited him. He'd even saved the lives of his comrades and himself many times with just this pendant. Lin Yi still hadn't fully grasped the function of the pendant yet. But the pendant's ability was very mystical. It was as if it could read his thoughts. If someone wanted to harm him within a certain range, the pendant would send him a signal, letting him know in advance. It was because of this that Lin Yi and his comrades were able to survive the rain of bullets in the primordial forest time and time again. This was the jade pendant's early warning function. Another function of the jade pendant was that if there was someone who he had seen before and had tried to harm him within a certain range of him, even if that person concealed his murderous intent and did not release any malicious intent towards Lin Yi for the time being, Lin Yi could use the jade pendant signal to gradually lock onto that person's existence. The closer he got to this person, the stronger the signal from the jade pendant. In the end, battles between experts would often turn into sneak attacks and assassinations. If the first strike failed, they would quickly retreat. They would not engage in a prolonged battle. Those who had fought with Lin Yi once, even if they escaped under the cover of Lin Yi, were still somehow found and killed by Lin Yi. As a result, Lin Yi's teammates called him Eagle. An eagle was an animal that rarely got away once it set its eyes on its prey. Of course, the jade had many other extensions. It could warn him of bad things, and it could warn him of good things as well. It was just that the signal was different, and Lin Yi didn't know how the jade was affecting him, but he didn't know how it was affecting him. At least the people around him weren't affected at all. But the signals that Lin Yi had figured out were only these three. Under other circumstances, the jade would also send out other signals, but Lin Yi didn't know what they meant, nor did he know what triggered the reaction from the jade. Yushu went upstairs and pushed open the door to Menyao's room. Mengyao was curled up on the bed eating chips, an English textbook on her lap, marking today's exam papers. Eating too many snacks will affect your growth. Yushu looked at Mengyao with a smile, remembering what happened to Lin Yi before. Her smile widened. What are you smiling at? Mengyao was confused by Yushu's smile, feeling uncomfortable all over. She looked at herself from head to toe, but didn't see anything wrong with her. Wasn't it just a bag of chips? Was Yushu mocking her chest for not being as big as Menyao's? Yao Yao, let me tell you something fun. I've avenged you. Yushu sat on the bed sneakily, snatching the bag of chips from Menyao's hands. Didn't you say that eating snacks will affect your growth? Mengyao glared at her. What revenge? Why are you being so secretive? Hee, I've developed very well. My height is very balanced already. Yushu popped a chip into her mouth nonchalantly. I called Shield Bro over for dinner after you left just now, you know what? Then, I told him to sit at your seat, told him that I've already filled his bowl, and he ate it. What's wrong with that? Ah. You're not trying to say that he ate my leftover bowl of rice, are you? Menyao's eyes widened. He even used your chopsticks. Yushu said proudly. What do you think? Now that he ate your saliva, he's avenged you, right? What nonsense. Mengyao shook her head. Isn't he still taking advantage of me? Yushu thought to herself. You ate his saliva, so you're taking advantage of him. But thinking about it, that was indeed the case. If it were any other boy in school, they'd probably be happy about it. Alright, let's not talk about him. Meng Yao was a little annoyed, and didn't want to talk about Lin Yi. Aren't you going to tidy up the mistakes in the English test? Yeah, I'll do it now. Yushu stopped joking around and took out the test papers from her bag. She started tidying them up with Meng Yao. Meng Yao and Yushu weren't stupid, but it was useless if they didn't work hard. Meng Yao and Yushu were still working hard, especially since Meng Yao didn't want people to say that she'd gotten into a top class in a top school because of her family background. After tidying up the English test papers, the two went to study for other subjects. They were 12th graders, after all, and would be taking the college entrance exams soon. It wouldn't be hard for Meng Yao and Yushu to get into a top university with their family background, but it was different if they got in themselves. It wasn't early anymore, and Meng Yao yawned. Yushu, on the other hand, was a little sleepy as well. The two of them took a hot shower in the bathroom, and after watching an episode of Pleasant Goat and Big Big Wolf on their MP4, they fell asleep right after. Lin Yi, on the other hand, practiced the art of dragon mastery the entire night, replenishing his stamina after a night of training. It was more than enough for a few hours of deep sleep. It was already 5 in the morning when Lin Yi opened his eyes and let out a breath of turbid air. Lin Yi went to the washroom to wash up. He wouldn't watch TV this morning no matter what. Chapter 72. Being set up. Lin Yi had learned from Faubert that Meng Yao and Yushu ate breakfast in the school cafeteria every morning if he wasn't here. Lin Yi, however, didn't mind the hassle of cooking. There was some leftover rice from last night, and Lin Yi planned on making egg fried rice. It wasn't much trouble at all. Lin Yi put on his clothes and left the room, heading towards the dining room. He opened the fridge and found a ham sausage and a couple of eggs. Lin Yi wasn't worried that these things would expire. Faubert would always check on them and buy some fresh stuff to keep in the fridge. The two princesses rarely cooked for themselves, but it was always better to have something prepared. Meng Yao could fry an egg for herself when she was hungry at night. He couldn't find any onions after searching for a long time. The price of onions had gone up ever since the tossing onions song, and Lin Yi had no choice but to give up on using onions. Egg fried rice was something Lin Yi always made at home, and it didn't take long before a pot of fragrant fried rice was ready. Lin Yi scooped a bowl for himself, quickly finishing it before tossing the bowl into the sink and putting it back on the rack. Lin Yi didn't want yesterday's incident to repeat itself either, so he decided to put the cutlery away after washing it. Perhaps he'd made some noise, but it wasn't long before Meng Yao and Yushu came downstairs in their pajamas, yawning and yawning. The two were wearing cartoon pajamas, looking very cute. It didn't seem to match their age, but Lin Yi understood when he remembered that they watched cartoons all the time. Girls, especially young misses, were a little childish. Still, the two beautiful legs beneath their pajamas made Lin Yi's blood boil. Couldn't these girls be a little more careful at home? Did they really think that he didn't exist? Didn't they think that he wouldn't push them down? Ugh, not really. Wow, Shield bro, you prepared breakfast for us again. Yushu wrinkled her nose as she followed the scent to the kitchen. Ah, it's egg fried rice today, my favorite. Ahem. Meng Yao wasn't too happy with Yushu's obvious reaction. How could she let that Lin Yi get all cocky? Yao Yao, do you want some? Yushu took a bowl and filled it for herself before asking Meng Yao. I don't like it. Meng Yao still couldn't let go of her pride. Wouldn't eating Lin Yi's food be the same as eating his food? Although she ate it yesterday and the day before, today. Sigh, little Shu was really something. She ate it but she acted like it was delicious. Let's eat together, I cooked quite a lot. It'll be a waste if you don't eat. Lin Yi smiled, as if he could tell that Meng Yao wasn't telling the truth. Oh, Teacher said we shouldn't waste food. I'll eat a little then. Meng Yao said after some hesitation, using Lin Yi as an excuse. Ah. Lin Yi didn't say anything. The miss knew how to be frugal now. You guys eat, I'm going out for a walk. Lin Yi said, worried that Meng Yao would feel awkward if he stayed. He turned around and walked out of the villa. Yao Yao, didn't you notice? Shield Bro's a very considerate man, he can fight, he can cook, and he's pretty handsome too. Yushu whispered to Meng Yao as she ate. Shu, are you serious? 2 bowls of noodles and 1 bowl of egg fried rice is enough to melt you. You're already speaking up for him. Meng Yao's eyes went wide as she looked at Yushu. You're not in heat, are you? You're the one in heat. Yushu blushed. I'm just afraid that someone else will get to him first and you'll regret it. That fox Lingshan's pretty interested in Shield Bro, they've only known each other for 2.5 days and they're already getting intimate with him. Him? Who cares? Meng Yao curled her lips. I don't think he's a good person, Lingshan just needs to seduce him. Speaking of Lingshan, Yushu was a little troubled. Why did her brother like a woman like that? If he knew what was going on between Lingshan and Lin Yi, he'd go crazy, achoo. Lin Yi sneezed as soon as he stepped out of the door. What was wrong with him? Did he catch a cold? It wasn't cold in the morning, was it? Of course, Lin Yi didn't know that the 2 girls were talking about him while eating his egg fried rice. Lin Yi had been living in the villa for 3 days now, but this was the first time he took a good look at the outside of the villa. This was obviously a place where the rich lived. Those who could afford a house here had to be rich or powerful. Yushu's identity made Lin Yi suspicious. He hadn't seen her family before, but the fact that she lived alone in a villa meant that her family wasn't ordinary people. A black Ferrari came speeding from afar, the engine roaring loudly. When it got close to Lin Yi, the Ferrari slowed down noticeably. The person in the car looked at Lin Yi, confused. He'd seen almost all the young masters and ladies in the area, but Lin Yi didn't look familiar. The Ferrari stopped in front of Meng Yao's villa, and the driver rolled down the window. It was a young man. Hey, bro, you just moved here, right? The young man asked Lin Yi. Me? You could say that. Lin Yi didn't know who this person was, but since he didn't show any other intentions, Lin Yi gave him some face and replied. My name is Sun Yikai. If you have any trouble in the future, you can use my name. I'll take care of everyone in our Sea View Villa Bay. The young man said to Lin Yi. Okay, thank you. Lin Yi looked at the enthusiastic Sun Yikai and nodded. Although he didn't need anyone to take care of him, this Sun Yikai didn't seem to have any bad intentions, so Lin Yi wouldn't reject him. Sun Yikai saw that Lin Yi didn't seem to have heard of his name, so he smiled faintly and didn't say much. Bro, I haven't been to school for a long time. I have to go today. Let's meet another day. Goodbye. Lin Yi waved at him. Sun Yikai started the car and left. From Sun Yikai's words, Lin Yi also roughly understood that this Sun Yikai was probably very popular in society. Because he and Lin Yi lived in the same villa area, he took care of the people in the villa area. However, this could also be seen as a kind of showing off. In any case, this Sun Yikai wasn't very annoying, and Lin Yi didn't show anything to him. Chapter 73. Free Chef. It wasn't long before Faubert's Bentley stopped in front of the villa, and Faubert paused when he saw Lin Yi standing there. Mr. Lin, why are you here? Faubert asked curiously as he got out of the car, looking at Lin Yi curiously. I came out for some fresh air, and to see what kind of people live around here. Lin Yi said. Faubert nodded. Meng Yao and the others aren't out yet. I'll go get them. Meng Yao and Yushu walked out of the villa as they spoke, laughing and chatting with each other. They greeted Faubert when they saw him and got in the car. Lin Yi got in the passenger seat naturally, and Faubert started the car and drove slowly towards the school. The two had been whispering to each other ever since they got in the car. The Bentley was quite spacious, and Lin Yi didn't want to eavesdrop on their conversation. He didn't really care what they were talking about. Yushu nudged Meng Yao after a while. "Why don't you tell me if you like it?" "What do I like? I'm just having a bite or two, it's fine if you don't tell me." Meng Yao humphed, ignoring Yushu. Yushu didn't have a choice. She wrinkled her nose. All right. I'll tell you." Their voices were louder and clearer, and Lin Yi could hear them from the passenger seat, but he didn't know what they were talking about. "Faubert, can you get some fresh ingredients when you come back tonight?" Yushu said to Faubert, who was driving. "Oh. Ingredients?" Uncle Fu was slightly startled. "Are they fresh vegetables and meat?" "Yeah, eggs, seasonings, and whatnot. It's fine as long as it's all there is." Yushu nodded. "All right." Faubert was a little puzzled. He'd prepared fresh meat and vegetables for them before, but a lot of it had expired. Faubert only prepared a small amount after that, just in case. He didn't expect Yushu to ask him to prepare a whole bunch all of a sudden. Judging from Yushu's conversation with Meng Yao, there was an 80% chance that Meng Yao was part of it as well, and so Faubert didn't ask any questions and agreed without hesitation. "Yay! Sister Yao Yao." Yushu raised her hand excitedly, intending to give Meng Yao a high five. Meng Yao glared at her. "You only know how to eat. Let's see if you'll be able to get married when you turn into a pig." Lin Yi, on the other hand, was speechless. He'd be an idiot if he didn't understand what Yushu was up to. Buying so many ingredients, did he think he was a chef? Fuck his grandmother's leg. Wasn't he being wronged? Even a runny nose could be used against him. If word of this got out and his teammates heard about it, wouldn't they laugh their heads off? But it wasn't easy to explain, and the more he tried to explain, the worse it would get. Lin Yi could only endure it. He'd just treat it as a mission, and this reward was enough to feed him for the rest of his life. Lin Yi didn't think that it was a big deal now. Compared to the North African jungle, where even a spider could kill him, life here was much better. He could go to school, and he could hit on girls. Ugh, hitting on girls didn't seem very reliable. Lin Yi saw Yushu winking at him in the rearview mirror. He closed his eyes and pretended he didn't see it. Yushu squeezed her eyes for a long time, and finally found a few difficult expressions to piss Lin Yi off, only to realize that Shield Bro had closed his eyes. Yushu's anger flared up, and her face started cramping up. "Shu, what are you doing? What's wrong with your face?" Meng Yao noticed something wrong with Yushu as well. It's nothing. It's just a toothache." Yushu held her breath. She couldn't tell Meng Yao about this, or she'd laugh her head off. "So it's a toothache. I thought your eyes were broken when I saw you squeezing your eyes." Lin Yi interrupted faintly, taking it as revenge for calling him a chef. "Ha!" Yushu smiled instead of getting angry. So the guy didn't just close his eyes, and saw her face. Her cramping wasn't for nothing. Yushu was happy again at the thought. "Shu, why are you smiling when you have a toothache?" Meng Yao didn't know what was going on, and she was even more confused when she saw Yushu grimacing. It's nothing. Yushu waved her hand. The car stopped in an alley near the school, and Meng Yao stopped asking questions. The two got out of the car one after the other, and Lin Yi continued to sit in the car. According to the two, he had to avoid arousing suspicion. "Mr. Lin, I'll take you to the hospital to change your bandages," Faubert said as he started the car. "Change my bandages?" Lin Yi remembered that his leg injury hadn't healed yet, and the pain was nothing to Lin Yi. Lin Yi wouldn't have remembered it if he hadn't brought it up on purpose. All right. Lin Yi thought that he'd have to go to the pharmacy later. He'd have to concoct some medicine first. Normal medicine would heal too slowly. He'd also have to concoct the medicine for Huijuan. The car arrived at Songjiang's First People's Hospital, and Faubert parked the car while Lin Yi went down to change his bandages. Lin Yi didn't see the pretty nurse Guan Xian when he arrived at the surgical treatment room. The nurse on duty this year was a middle-aged woman, and Lin Yi felt relieved. Thank goodness she wasn't here, or it'd be awkward again. Hi, I'm here to change my bandages. Lin Yi said as he handed the document to the nurse. Oh, you can sit over there. The nurse said as she looked at the document Lin Yi handed over. She quickly prepared the bandages and said to Lin Yi. Pants off. Ugh. Aren't we supposed to close the door? Lin Yi asked, a little embarrassed that the door wasn't closed yet. What's there to be afraid of, young man? Hurry up. The nurse said fiercely. This is a hospital, who wants to look at your butt? Ugh. All right. Lin Yi was speechless. He thought back to how shy Guan Xian was yesterday. This nurse was probably a young girl back in the day, but time had turned her into a fierce ant. He wondered if Guan Xian would be the same in a few years. Lin Yi felt a chill run down his spine as he thought about it. His first impression of Guan Xian was pretty good. He had to admit, however, that the nurse was a lot more skilled than Guan Xian. She finished changing Lin Yi's bandages in no time and threw the cotton into the trash can. Done. You're recovering well, young man. Come again tomorrow and you'll be fine. Chapter 74. Chapter 74. The man in the washroom. Lin Yi had wanted to buy some Eastern medicine from the pharmacy near the hospital, but the prices there were a bit higher than usual. Lin Yi decided against it after some thought. He had some money on hand, and Pengzhan's bank card, but the Eastern medicine he needed wasn't something ordinary. Most of them cost tens of thousands of dollars. Mr. Lin, Mr. Chu called just now, he'd like me to bring you to him if you're free. Faubert said to Lin Yi after getting in the car. Oh. Uncle Chu's looking for me? Bring me to him then. You know, Faubert, I don't have much to do other than school. Lin Yi didn't know why Pengzhan was looking for himself. Perhaps it was because of the bank robbery, or the conflict with Heibao yesterday. Alright, I'll contact Mr. Chu right now. With that, Faubert took out his phone and dialed Pengzhan's number, telling him that he and Lin Yi were heading over right now. The security guards at the underground parking lot recognized Faubert's Bentley, and opened the gate before the car even got close. Lin Yi didn't comment on the security guards' fawning behavior. Faubert's car was a bit more expensive. It'd take some effort to find an identical one with the same brand, but the robbers from that day weren't normal people. There had to be someone behind them. Fortunately, it wouldn't affect the company too much even if they entered the underground parking lot, so Lin Yi didn't say anything. They got in the elevator and arrived at Pengzhan's office. Faubert knocked on the door and opened it to take a look. As the closest person to Pengzhan, he naturally had the right to enter and exit the office at will, even if there were other people in the room. But Faubert closed the door after one look, turning to Lin Yi. Mr. Lin, Mr. Chu's talking to someone right now. Can we wait a bit? All right. Lin Yi nodded. Pengzhan, as the chairman of a mega corporation, couldn't just sit around and wait for Lin Yi to come knocking on his door. There were plenty of things he could do in the meantime. I'm going to the washroom, call me if you need anything. Okay, Mr. Lin, the bathroom is over there. Faubert pointed in the opposite direction of the chairman's office. On this floor, almost all the senior leaders of the group had their own restrooms in their offices, so they didn't need to go to the public restroom. Naturally, the farther the public restroom was from the chairman's office, the better. Lin Yi quickly walked to the bathroom. When he was about to reach the door of the bathroom, Lin Yi heard a man in the bathroom saying something in a low voice. It seemed like he was talking on the phone. Originally, Lin Yi didn't want to eavesdrop on other people's conversation. He didn't have the bad taste to pry into other people's privacy, but Lin Yi's hearing was very sharp. The man's mention of a name caught Lin Yi's attention. "I've waited for this opportunity for so long. That Chu Mengyao girl went to the bank to get a card. Who the hell are you looking for? What kind of people are you looking for?" The man seemed to be very angry as he shouted at the other side of the phone. He was afraid that others would hear him, so he tried to lower his voice. If it weren't for Lin Yi's exceptional hearing and the fact that he was standing at the door of the bathroom, even if others passed by, they wouldn't be able to hear what he was saying. The man had mentioned Chu Mengyao's name a few times before, and it had already caught Lin Yi's attention. When he walked to the door and heard the man talking about the bank again, Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. Lin Yi stood in front of the sink of the bathroom quietly, listening to the man's words. "How can you ask me to cooperate with you if you can't even handle such a small matter? It's not a big deal. You just need to control that Chu Mengyao girl for a few hours. When they are discussing the contract with Pengzhan, they just need to hint that Chu Mengyao's matter is related to you guys, and the contract would have been signed long ago. It's just a little hint. Even if that old fox Pengzhan is angry, he'll swallow it for the sake of his precious daughter's safety." The man was obviously very angry. "Humph, there shouldn't be any loopholes in this matter, right? What? You said that you don't know where the group of people you found are now? Motherfucker, how am I supposed to cooperate with a pig like you?" The man cursed. "Alright, I'll get some information from the police station. You also need to deal with the tail as soon as possible. If you really can't. You understand what I mean, right?" Ring dash, a sudden burst of classic Nokia music sounded, and the man in the bathroom stopped talking abruptly. It was obvious that he was shocked. However, the one who was shocked was Lin Yi. His phone rang, and Lin Yi smiled bitterly. It seemed like he had alerted the enemy. It would be very difficult for him to hear anything else. Just as Lin Yi thought, the man in the bathroom was really shocked. The public bathroom on the top floor was almost never used. This was because the leaders of the company who worked on this floor all had their own bathroom. No one would come here to use the bathroom. Only those who came from outside to work, and some workers would use the public bathroom. This was also the reason why he chose to make the call here. In many cases, this bathroom would be cleaned by cleaners in the morning and night, and almost no one would use it during the day. Lin Yi helplessly took out his phone and saw that it was Faubert's number. Lin Yi directly hung up and mumbled to himself, "Junhua bro, it's Xiaoyang, Li Xiaoyang. I'm at Pengzhan Industries, but I couldn't find you. Which floor are you on?" "I'm already on the top floor. Don't all the executives of Xuanxi Industries work on the top floor?" "You're the business manager, so I came to the top floor to look for you." "What? On the third floor?" "Alright, I'll go down. I was just about to use the bathroom." "What? The top floor is the territory of the big leaders?" "Forget it, I'm not going up, I'll go down first," Lin Yi said as he walked out of the bathroom and walked towards Chu Pengzhan's office. On the other hand, Faubert didn't think much when he saw Lin Yi hang up. After all, Lin Yi was just going to the bathroom. Seeing that he called, Lin Yi would definitely ask him to come to Chu Pengzhan's office. The man in the bathroom heard Lin Yi's words and instantly let out a sigh of relief. He muttered, "Damn it, he's just here for business. I was scared to death. Looking for a business manager, and he even came to the top floor. What a big manager, and he's still a leader. This person is also an idiot. Doesn't he know that the salespeople call themselves business managers to make themselves sound better?" Chapter 75. Chapter 75, Pengzhan's analyst wanted to drag the man to Pengzhan's office in the washroom, but on second thoughts, the people who worked at the top of the company were either shareholders, general managers, or vice presidents. Not a single one of them was a small fry. Putting aside the fact that Pengzhan wouldn't be willing to admit it, Lin Yi was afraid that this man wasn't just one person, but a group of people. Judging from the people he'd called, he had a lot of accomplices. Pulling him out wouldn't necessarily be the same for his accomplices. Besides, Pengzhan wouldn't be able to deal with someone at the level of a vice CEO with just a few words. There were bound to be a lot of factions forming when a company grew to a certain point, and Pengzhan was the biggest shareholder. He couldn't just touch the people of the other shareholders, and there was a high chance that the person on the phone was one of the shareholders. That was why Lin Yi decided to disguise himself as someone who came to the wrong floor to avoid alerting the enemy. That way, the man in the bathroom wouldn't suspect anything. Lin Yi walked to Pengzhan's office and saw that the door was open. Faubert was standing beside Pengzhan, reporting something to him. Pengzhan nodded repeatedly, a satisfied smile on his face. He raised his head when Lin Yi appeared at the door. "Lin Yi, you're here. Come in and have a seat. Uncle Chu." Lin Yi closed the door behind him as he walked in. He wanted to talk to Pengzhan about what he'd heard in the bathroom. "Lin Yi, I heard that you got into a conflict with some gangsters yesterday." Pengzhan asked straightforwardly after getting Lin Yi to sit on the sofa in front of his desk. Lin Yi could tell that Pengzhan's tone wasn't one of condemnation, but one of deep concern. This touched Lin Yi's heart. He was just a personal study companion he'd hired to accompany his daughter in her studies, and yet he cared for him so much. It was rare. However, Lin Yi also had some doubts. If it were someone else, the first thing they would talk about would be to fire him and not implicate his daughter. "Yes, someone called Zhong Pingyang sent him to deal with me." Lin Yi didn't try to hide anything as he told Pengzhan the truth. "But I'm guessing that Heibao will take care of everything by himself in the police station, and Pinliang won't get involved." "Oh. Zhong Pingliang? Do you have a problem with him?" Pengzhan was even more puzzled. Lin Yi had only been in school for a few days. How did he make an enemy like this? From the looks of it, Pinliang had hired a criminal, even with a gun. "Ah." Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "It's my fault, Mr. Chu, let me explain." Faubert saw that Lin Yi didn't mention anything about Meng Yao, and naturally knew that he meant well. But as Pengzhan's confidant, he didn't hide anything from Pengzhan. "Oh. You know about it?" Pengzhan blinked. He didn't expect Faubert to know about the conflict between Lin Yi and Pinliang. "Mr. Chu, it's like this." Faubert nodded with a bitter smile. "That day when the Miss saw you, Mr. Lin, she wasn't too satisfied with Mr. Lin acting as her shield, so she wanted to test it out. It just so happened that Pinliang was the Miss's pursuer, and he kept bugging the Miss, so the Miss asked Mr. Lin to deal with him. All right, there's no need to continue." "I get it." Pengzhan shook his head with a bitter smile after listening to Faubert's story. This was all his precious daughter's fault. Yao Yao likes to mess around, so don't give in to her. She needs someone to keep her in check. Don't mess around with her next time. We almost got into big trouble this time. If it weren't for your skills, who knows what would have happened. Uncle Chu, I'm fine." Lin Yi was speaking the truth. He really didn't see Heibao Bro as a threat. A small fry like him would only be cannon fodder in the front lines. This Zhong Pinliang. I'll have to talk to Principal Ding Bingdong about it. A student like him shouldn't be allowed to stay in school. Pengzhan was quite pissed off at this Zhong Pinliang. "Mr. Chu, this Zhong Pinliang is Director Jin's nephew." Li Fu reminded Chu Chuyen as he had a record of all this information. "Oh." Pengzhan frowned. He didn't expect this Zhong Pinliang to have such a connection. Pengzhan was the chairman of Pengzhan Industries, the biggest shareholder, but there were many other shareholders in the board of directors. They didn't have as many shares as Pengzhan, but they still had a lot of weight. As a result, Pengzhan couldn't afford to offend the other shareholders over such a small matter. Pengzhan Industries was one of the shareholders of Songshan's first school, so naturally, Director Jin was one of the shareholders as well. Ding Bingdong wouldn't be able to handle things like this. Pengzhan thought about it for a moment. He'd be graduating soon anyway, so he gave up on the idea of changing Zhong Pinliang. Uncle Chu, don't worry about it. After this incident, Zhong Pinliang's probably going to behave like a coward in school from now on. Lin Yi didn't care about him at all. Yeah, I'm really sorry about this. I may be in charge of a corporation, but there are many things that I can't do. Pengzhan sighed. Uncle Chu, I was just about to talk to you about this. Lin Yi saw that Pengzhan had changed the topic to company management, so he didn't have to find an excuse anymore. Uncle Chu, have you figured out what happened with the bank robbery that day? Right now, I only suspect that there's something unusual about it, but I haven't figured it out yet. Pengzhan didn't try to hide it. We can already confirm that they were after Yao Yao. Robbing a bank was just an excuse. They didn't make a move on Yao Yao earlier or later, but they just had to make a move on me when I was out in the city for business. This motive is very suspicious. Lin Yi praised inwardly. Pengzhan was indeed the helmsman of a large corporation, being able to come up with such a conclusion with just a few clues. It wasn't bad at all. His suspicions weren't far from the truth. Chapter 76. What kind of mission, but, this is the first time I'm working with their company. They probably don't know me that well, so I don't have any evidence to back up my suspicions. Pengzhan shook his head, as if denying his own guess. Uncle Chu, I heard a man talking on the phone when I went to the washroom. Lin Yi told Pengzhan what he'd overheard. Pengzhan frowned as he listened to Lin Yi's words. He'd suspected that there was something wrong with the company he'd been working with earlier, and they'd almost signed the contract. But when he'd arrived, they'd been using all sorts of excuses to push the contract away, as if they were waiting for something. They'd been looking at the time non-stop, and when the contract didn't come, they'd come up with an excuse, saying that the contract wasn't ready yet, and that they needed a meeting to discuss it. Pengzhan was pissed at the company for going back on their word, but the contract hadn't been signed yet, and they had the right to go back on their word. Pengzhan could only say a few words about working with them in the future before leaving in a hurry. However, the other party's actions had raised his suspicions. He hadn't thought much of it at first, but after learning that Meng Yao had been kidnapped by the bank robbers, Pengzhan wondered if there was a connection between the two incidents. But on the surface, the two incidents didn't seem to be related at all. Pengzhan couldn't find any connection between the two, and he only had his suspicions. But after listening to Lin Yi's words, Pengzhan understood everything. The other party hadn't intended to be sincere from the start, and they'd resorted to kidnapping his daughter to force him to achieve their goal. Indeed, if his daughter hadn't been rescued by Lin Yi, and had been kidnapped instead, Pengzhan would have had no choice but to agree to some benefits for his daughter's safety, as long as the other party revealed the slightest bit of information during the negotiation. The other party could have denied everything afterward, since it was only a bank robbery, and his daughter had only been taken as a hostage. With this layer of cover, the fact that the other party had carried out the kidnapping would have been easily covered up. No wonder the other party kept looking at the time, as if they were waiting for something. This was what they were waiting for. From what Lin Yi had said, the man on the phone in the washroom had to be someone high up in the company, since he was on the top floor of the company. With this person working together, the other party's plan was flawless. But of all things, of course, they hadn't considered the possibility of Lin Yi's presence. It seemed that of his daughter's side had been a wise decision after all. Pengzhan had only arranged Lin Yi to stay by Meng Yao's side of the company, of his mind of all of his plans. Of all. Peng Zhan hadn't thought of anything else. Yet, Lin Yi of his. Of this of his. I will look into this matter. I'll investigate this. Peng Zhan's eyes flashed fiercely. He might have had conflicts with some of the higher-ups in the company, but he wouldn't allow anyone to use his daughter to mess things up. Lin Yi nodded. He didn't want to get involved in these things. As the chairman of the company, Peng Zhan naturally had his own methods. Lin Yi only told Peng Zhan what he'd heard. As for how to carry it out, that was up to Peng Zhan. You didn't alert the enemy, did you? Peng Zhan suddenly thought of an important problem. Did Lin Yi alert the other party when he was eavesdropping in the washroom? If the other party was alerted, it'd be difficult to catch the other party's tail. Don't worry, Uncle Chu. Lin Yi smiled. I was shocked when Faubert called, but I pretended to be someone who came to the company for business and went to the wrong floor. Lin Yi told Peng Zhan everything he'd said to himself. Not bad. You're quite alert. Peng Zhan praised. The more he looked at Lin Yi, the more pleased he was with him. At first, it was his old father's wish, and Peng Zhan was just following the old man's wishes. But now, he truly felt that Lin Yi was a rare talent. Peng Zhan's father, Chu Sanhua, was a man of authority in the family. He'd started out as a small bricklayer, building up Peng Zhan Industries from scratch. Now that Peng Zhan Industries was in Peng Zhan's hands, Chu Sanhua was still a man of authority in the family. Peng Zhan's family was very poor when he was young, and Chu Sanhua established Peng Zhan Construction when he was 7 or 8, growing it up step by step. That was why he wasn't tainted by the bad habits of those rich second generations. He also had the demeanor of a big family and was very respectful to his father. Many of the shareholders in the company were old friends who had built up the company with his father. Although the shares were now in the hands of their children and grandchildren, some of them were starting to get restless, but Peng Zhan didn't do anything to them out of consideration for his father's face. But today's incident had crossed Peng Zhan's bottom line. Meng Yao was his only daughter, and these people dared to mess with his daughter. This was the first time Peng Zhan had been angered. Right, Uncle Chu, can you tell me what mission you have for me to do? Lin Yi asked after some hesitation. He'd better take advantage of today's opportunity to ask this question. He'd been in Songshan for a few days now, and he hadn't seen any important missions for him to do. Other than accompanying Meng Yao to and from school, making her breakfast, and taking care of a few clowns. It was an easy life, but Lin Yi didn't feel at ease. He was here for a big mission, and it was said that this mission would be enough for him to eat and drink for the rest of his life. But Lin Yi didn't think that accompanying the miss to school would be enough for him to eat and wear for the rest of his life. Oh, a mission. Peng Zhan looked at Lin Yi oddly. It's a very important mission, but the most important thing right now is for you to build a good relationship with Meng Yao. That's the only way to ensure the success of the mission. Wah! Lin Yi was startled. Build a good relationship with Meng Yao? Only then could he carry out the mission. Just what kind of mission was this? Could it be that it had something to do with Meng Yao? Could it be that there was someone behind the scenes who wanted to harm Meng Yao, and Peng Zhan wanted to use Meng Yao as bait so that he could find the person behind the scenes? That was the only thing Lin Yi could think of. Peng Zhan's words didn't make sense, and he was still confused. But according to Lin Yi's experience in missions, most employers would keep their missions a secret. They wouldn't reveal the details until the very last moment. Chapter 77. Killing Intent. Uncle Chu, I'll be heading to school if there's nothing else. Lin Yi had said what he needed to, and the rest was up to Peng Zhan. All right. Peng Zhan nodded. Don't tell Yao Yao about what happened today. I don't want her to be troubled. Don't worry, Uncle Chu, I won't say anything. Lin Yi stood up and prepared to leave. Li Fu, send it to school. Punjan instructed Faubert. Alright, Mr. Chu. Faubert nodded. No need, I'll just get a taxi downstairs. Lin Yi said quickly. He'd planned on going to the pharmacy, and he didn't want Faubert to follow him. There were some things he didn't want others to know. That's fine. Punjan didn't insist after Lin Yi said so. I'll leave Yao Yao's safety in your hands before I deal with the company's problems. Ha! Lin Yi waved his hand. Uncle Chu, my mission has something to do with Miss Chu. Naturally, I won't let anything happen to her before the mission is completed. Punjan nodded, sighing softly. He'd thought that he'd let Lin Yi take advantage of the situation, but it seemed that Lin Yi wasn't too interested in Mengyao. He didn't know what his father was planning, but whatever he said, he'd do as he'd said. Li Fu, inform the administrative department, tell them to prepare a meeting room. I'm having a board meeting in the afternoon. Punjan didn't insist when Lin Yi refused to let Faubert see him off because he had something he needed Faubert to arrange. Alright, Mr. Chu. Faubert nodded before leaving Punjan's office. Punjan had a secretary, but there were many things he couldn't let his secretary know. Only Faubert, his confidant, knew. So, in many cases, Faubert took on the role of a secretary. Lin Yi walked out of Punjan's building and flagged down a taxi. Young man, where are you going? After getting in the car, the driver pressed the odometer on the meter and asked. Sir, do you know where I can buy wholesale Chinese medicine? Lin Yi wasn't familiar with the geography of Songshan, but some of the older taxi drivers were living maps. They knew everything about the city like the back of their hands. Oh, are you talking about Chinese medicine? The ones made from twigs and twigs, or the ones made from twigs? The driver didn't know what Lin Yi was looking for. Ha! Lin Yi couldn't help but chuckle at the driver's description. In the eyes of normal people, Chinese medicine was more or less the same as sticks of grass. Loose sticks of grass. Lin Yi didn't bother correcting them. The girl wasn't a professional, after all, and it was fine as long as she could understand him. If you're talking about wholesale, you'll have to go to Qiaonan Village's Chinese medicine wholesale market. The driver said, but it's not in the city. It'll take half a day to get there. If you don't want to buy much, you can go to a bigger pharmacy. Lin Yi gave up on the idea of going to the wholesale market after hearing the driver's words. He didn't need to go there right now, at least. He could buy some at the pharmacy first. Then help me find a bigger pharmacy. That's easy. The driver started the car. After a few turns, the car stopped in front of a big pharmacy. It seemed that the driver didn't go around in circles. The fare on the meter was still the starting fare. Lin Yi paid the fare and thanked the driver before walking into the pharmacy. When he entered the pharmacy, Lin Yi sighed. It seems that medicine is a very profitable industry no matter when. There are so many people buying medicine in the pharmacy during the day. Many common medicine counters are already full of people. However, Lin Yi wanted to buy Chinese herbal medicine. There were relatively few people buying this kind of thing. He handed the list in his hand to the salesperson. The salesperson gave Lin Yi a receipt and asked him to pay. Lin Yi needed a lot of Chinese medicine. It would take a while to weigh it. Fortunately, there were no other customers. Lin Yi took advantage of the time when the salesperson was weighing and walked around the pharmacy. Jinchuang medicine. A voice caught Lin Yi's attention. Jinchuang medicine. Lin Yi was stunned. There is such a medicine. The so-called Jinchuang medicine referred to metal objects such as knives. In ancient times, the weapon that hurt people the most should be weapons. Therefore, Jinchuang also referred to weapons, and chuang meant wounds. Therefore, Jinchuang medicine referred to medicine that specialized in treating metal injuries such as knife wounds. Its effects were hemostasis, analgesia, and anti-inflammatory. However, Jinchuang medicine was just a name in ancient times. There didn't seem to be any medicine called Jinchuang medicine now, right? No, it's sold out. The salesperson answered the person who asked for the medicine with a blank expression. Lin Yi took a look. The person who asked for the medicine was a girl in black. She was wearing a navy cap on her head. The brim of the cap was very low, and her face couldn't be seen clearly. After getting the reply from the salesperson that the medicine was sold out, the girl didn't say anything. She turned around and left, but her steps were a little unsteady. Suddenly, Lin Yi's eyes were fixed on the girl's feet. On the ground that the girl walked on, there was a clear trail of blood. Obviously, it flowed down the hem of her pants. However, in this pharmacy with people coming and going, it didn't attract anyone's attention. The blood trail was quickly stepped on by the people walking back and forth. The reason why Lin Yi paid attention to this girl was because Lin Yi was a little curious about the Jinchuang medicine she mentioned. Secondly, it was because Lin Yi sensed a trace of the same kind of aura from her, murderous aura. Murderous aura was a very mysterious thing. Murderous aura was actually a signal emitted by animals when they attacked each other. This signal needed to be detected by the sixth sense. Someone once did such an experiment. They put a wild cat and a mouse in a box, separated by two thin soundproof boards in the middle. The distance between the two boards wasn't very far. Then, they eliminated the smell, and they couldn't see each other. As a result, the cat seemed to sense something and wanted to pass through the board. It kept scratching the board with its claws, while the mouse curled up on the other side. It could be seen that the cat could sense that the mouse was next door, and the mouse could also sense the cat. But how did the cat and the mouse sense each other? According to the explanation of scientists, this might be the sixth sense in addition to the five senses of animals. In other words, they didn't use their ears, nose, or eyes to detect each other. Animals could use their sixth sense to sense a signal emitted by their natural enemies or other animals that wanted to attack them. This signal could be interpreted as murderous aura. Chapter 78. About or note: a normal person might not be able to detect the murderous aura radiating from the girl, but Lin Yi, who was in the same line of work, could keenly sense it. It could also be called a sixth sense. But while Lin Yi noticed the girl didn't notice Lin Yi. After all these years of training, Lin Yi was able to conceal his murderous aura very well, but people who could reach Lin Yi's level were few and far between. In the end, Lin Yi shook his head. The girl's dressing was obviously to avoid attention. Even though she was injured, Lin Yi didn't want to help her. She might be in the same line of work, but the same line of work didn't want to be disturbed in the middle of a mission. Sometimes, people in the same line of work belonged to different organizations, and they might even be enemies with each other. "Excuse me, what is golden creation?" Lin Yi asked the salesperson casually. The salesperson froze, then looked at Lin Yi as if he was an idiot, as if Lin Yi's question was stupid and naive. She didn't even bother to answer. "It's a surgical medicine, of course. We don't have it in stock." Lin Yi smiled wryly. It seemed like it was a new drug, and one that sold well. But while the salesperson didn't bother to answer Lin Yi's question, there was someone else who answered Lin Yi's question enthusiastically. Before Lin Yi could say anything, an old woman beside Lin Yi started chattering away. "Young man, you don't even know what golden creation is. You know Dr. Kong, right? Dr. Kong from a traditional Chinese medicine family, he's one of the leading figures in the Chinese medicine world." The old lady started talking about Miracle Dr. Kang's exploits. Golden creation is a quick healing medicine that Miracle Dr. Kong came up with. It can heal wounds so quickly that there won't even be a scar left. How is it? Amazing, right? So godly. Lin Yi did not expect Dr. Kong to be so amazing. His medicine was actually on par with his own. That's right. I heard that it's a secret recipe passed down from generation to generation. This golden creation is given priority to the military. Due to the production capacity, a small amount of it is regularly supplied to the private pharmacies. That's why it's in high demand. The old lady said, it's almost impossible to buy it from a pharmacy. My niece's boyfriend's third sister's aunt's fifth cousin is the manager of the supply and marketing department of XX pharmacy chain. Last time, I used his connections to buy a bottle. I heard that once it arrived, it was digested internally. How could it be sold on the shelves? Right? Lin Yi thought, if this medicine is really as magical as this old woman said, it is not impossible for it to sell well. Of course. Especially for young girls, it's so ugly if they get a scar on their body. It's not to heal the wound quickly, but to not leave a scar. The old lady said, I heard that nowadays, people don't give platinum or gold as gifts anymore. Instead, they give golden creation as gifts. Really? Lin Yi was stunned. He did not know whether this old lady was telling the truth or not. Of course, why would I lie to you? The old lady preached as if she was taking advantage of her seniority. Oh, I see. Thank you, but it seems that I don't need it for the time being. Lin Yi said to the old lady with a smile. Yeah, you're a big boy. You don't need that thing. The old lady nodded. Obviously, she misunderstood Lin Yi's words. Lin Yi meant that he could make the medicine himself. There was no need for him to buy it. Lin Yi naturally would not explain. He turned around and went to the Chinese herbal medicine counter. The herbs that he wanted had been weighed and put into a sealed bag according to the type. Lin Yi checked carefully and found that 2 of the herbs seemed to have been stored for too long. They had gone bad, and the medicinal effect was greatly reduced. Lin Yi had no choice but to weigh a little more. He would win with numbers. He checked the utensils and tools that he wanted. After making sure that there were no problems, he carefully packed them up and left the pharmacy. It didn't matter if it was Chinese or Western medicine these days, they were all selling very well. Only the loose herbs weren't that popular in pharmacies, and not many people bought them. This was why Lin Yi was able to get out of the shop so quickly. After leaving the pharmacy, Lin Yi did not plan to go to school directly. He was already absent. It didn't matter whether he went or not. He had already bought a series of measuring tools and tools. Lin Yi wanted to find a place to make the medicine first. This kind of thing, of course, couldn't be done in school. Of course, he couldn't do it in Minyao's villa. The 2 girls would go crazy if the whole house smelled like Chinese medicine. The best way was to get a room by the hour and leave after he was done. With this idea in mind, Lin Yi was not in a hurry to go to school. Instead, he looked around the pharmacy to see if there was a suitable hotel to get a room by the hour. Lin Yi saw the girl from the pharmacy at the entrance of a deserted alley. At this moment, she was lying on the ground. There was a pool of fresh blood under her. Lin Yi frowned. He didn't want to poke his nose into other people's business, but in this deserted alley, who would dare to poke their nose into other people's business, let alone if there were people passing by? If he failed to save her and she died, it would cause unnecessary trouble. Lin Yi hesitated for a moment. He was also a person with a mission. It was not appropriate for him to poke his nose into other people's business. Moreover, in his line of work, he needed to be prepared to sacrifice himself at any time. Although, Lin Yi also knew that if he didn't help her, she might not survive due to excessive blood loss. However, sometimes, Lin Yi really couldn't do anything, especially this kind of thing that had nothing to do with him. It was obviously a troublesome thing. The girl didn't look like an ordinary person. Lin Yi really couldn't poke his nose into this kind of thing. Gritting his teeth, Lin Yi walked past the girl quickly. When he passed by the girl's body on the ground, Lin Yi couldn't help but look at her with pity. I hope you can make it. After that, he left quickly. But he didn't take more than a few steps before coming to a stop. Wait. That glance just now made Lin Yi see something that seemed familiar, but he wasn't sure. Lin Yi turned around and walked back to the girl's side. He bent down and stared at a ring on the girl's right little finger. When he saw the pattern on it, Lin Yi sighed and quickly touched the girl's wrist. He found that there was still a pulse. Lin Yi carefully helped her up from the ground and carried her on his back. Although the girl had fainted because of excessive blood loss, she still had some instinctive reactions when Lin Yi carried her. She subconsciously struggled twice. Perhaps it was a conditioned reflex to the outside world. Chapter 79. Origin. When Lin Yi had first arrived, he'd seen a motel by the roadside, but it didn't look too good. Lin Yi had decided to look around for a better motel instead. But the situation was urgent, and Lin Yi didn't have the time to look for another motel. One was already good enough. Get a room. Lin Yi barged into the motel with the girl on his back. The owner was watching TV out of boredom when she saw a young man barging in with a woman in black on his back. The man wanted to get a room as soon as he entered, and she couldn't help but smile ambiguously. Her motel was actually quite low class. It was set up to provide a place for young couples without money to cozy up to each other. Most of them didn't care if the place was high-end or not, as long as it was quiet and clean. The owner had seen plenty of young men and women who came here to get a room, but it was rare to see someone as impatient as Lin Yi, wanting to get a room as soon as he entered with a woman on his back. 15 kuai for an hour, 60 kuai for a day. The owner said to Lin Yi. Oh. I'll put down 100 then. Lin Yi pulled out 100 kuai from his pocket and handed it to the owner. Wait, take out your ID card to register. The lady boss was not blinded by the sight of money and did not let down her guard. Lin Yi frowned. He wasn't sure if the girl on his back could make it, but there was nothing he could do about it. It was reasonable to register a room, so Lin Yi took out his ID and handed it to the owner for registration. I don't need hers, do I? Lin Yi asked. Naturally, he was referring to the girl on his back. He believed the owner would understand what he meant. No need, Deng will be fine. The owner followed the rules when registering IDs. She wasn't trying to make things difficult for Lin Yi, but registering one person per room was fine. After scanning Lin Yi's ID, the owner took out a room card. Upstairs, room 209. Go up yourself. Thank you. Lin Yi took the room card and quickly carried the girl upstairs. Along the way, the girl lay motionless on Lin Yi's shoulder. If it weren't for the fact that he could feel her heartbeat through the softness of her chest, Lin Yi would have suspected that she was already dead. Who? Lin Yi threw the girl on the bed, then carefully closed the door, drew the curtains, and carefully checked every corner of the room. After confirming that there were no wireless cameras, he was relieved. To be honest, if Lin Yi hadn't suddenly seen the ring on the little finger of the girl's right hand, Lin Yi wouldn't have bothered with this kind of thing no matter what. She was just looking for trouble for herself for no reason. The pattern on the ring on the girl's hand represented an organization, a very famous international assassin organization. Although Lin Yi did not belong to this organization, the founder of this organization had a deep relationship with Lin Yi. The master who taught Lin Yi assassination techniques was one of the founders of this organization. Although old Lin was good at martial arts, he was proficient in the kind of martial arts that could be used to fight enemies head-on. However, in a real mission, it was rare to face the enemy head-on. Assassination and sneak attacks were the key to victory. When Lin Yi was 6 years old, Old Lin sent him to his master for 2 years of intensive training. His master taught him all the assassination and sneak attacks methods. Although he didn't know the specific identity of his master, and Old Lin never mentioned it directly, Lin Yi could vaguely tell that his master was a really powerful person. It had been many years since he saw his master. All these years, Lin Yi had always missed his master. He was Lin Yi's true master. Although Old Lin also taught Lin Yi many things, it was more like the kind of relationship between grandfather and grandson, and not the relationship of master and disciple. Moreover, Old Lin never expected to be Lin Yi's master. Lin Yi only learned less than 30% of his master's methods, but he was already able to take the initiative in missions. One could imagine how powerful his master was. However, he was too young at that time. Even if he studied hard, it would be good if he could understand 30%. It was because Lin Yi remembered his master's kindness that when Lin Yi saw the symbol of the organization his master founded on the ring on the girl's hand, he changed his mind and decided to help the girl. Although his master had long stopped caring about the affairs of the organization, no matter what, this girl was still one of his people. "I'll help you this once. Whether or not you can survive will depend on your luck." Lin Yi laid the girl flat on the bed, and the fisherman's hat on the girl's head slid to one side. Her short, black hair was scattered, and through the scattered hair, a slightly pale and delicate face could be clearly seen. Her facial features were very exquisite, and her eyelashes were long. However, her eyebrows were tightly knitted together. Even if she had fainted, she must have been in a lot of pain. Lin Yi was slightly stunned. He didn't think that under the fisherman's hat, the girl would hide such a beautiful face. This made Lin Yi a little surprised. Such a beautiful girl was an assassin. Looking at the girl's age, she should only be around 18 or 19 years old, similar to him. Lin Yi shook his head, but this was someone else's matter, and he had no right to interfere. From his previous observation, the girl's injury should be on the lower half of her body. However, the girl was wearing a pair of leather pants that didn't leak blood, so he couldn't tell where the injury was from the outside. Lin Yi was too lazy to look for it, so he directly used some force and took off the girl's leather pants. After taking it off, Lin Yi felt a little unnatural, and his breathing became rapid. Although Lin Yi's initial thoughts were very good and very pure, he only extended a helping hand to this dying female assassin because of his master's face. That was why he helped her take off her pants and treat her injury. However, if this female assassin looked like a male assassin, Lin Yi probably wouldn't have any special thoughts. However, this female assassin was very beautiful, and her figure was very good. Therefore, when Lin Yi took off the female assassin's pants, it was inevitable that he would have some improper thoughts. Any normal man would have such thoughts. However, what he saw next completely extinguished the fire of lust in Lin Yi's heart. The inside of the leather pants was completely dyed red with blood, and under the leather pants, the girl's pantyhose was completely soaked in blood. It was impossible to see the original color. Chapter 80. Healing. From the looks of it, the girl's pantyhose was probably attached to the wound. If he took it off, it might touch the wound and cause more bleeding. Lin Yi frowned. There weren't any surgical tools in the room. When he took off the girl's pants, Lin Yi had felt something hard. It was probably a dagger. Without any other tools, Lin Yi could only rely on the dagger. Picking up the pants, Lin Yi took out the dagger and swung it in the air a few times to test the feel of it. Then, he started moving it back and forth on the girl's pantyhose. Lin Yi was an expert when it came to knives. When he was 6 years old, he had been practicing with the dagger with his master. It was also one of the most common weapons used against enemies. Lin Yi only used the tip of the dagger to pick up the fiber connection of the pantyhose. He wouldn't hurt anything else. After a few moves, the girl's pantyhose was shredded to pieces. Lin Yi casually peeled it off and tossed it aside. Under the pantyhose, Lin Yi finally saw where the wound was. It was at the root of the right side of the thigh. The wound had been bandaged, but the bleeding didn't stop. Otherwise, the girl wouldn't have gone to the pharmacy to buy some Dr. Kang's golden wound. Other than the bandage, the girl's lower body was only left with her thigh. But Lin Yi didn't have any other thoughts. Lin Yi wasn't a psychopath. Even if she was as beautiful as a goddess, Lin Yi wouldn't be interested in a woman covered in blood. He used a knife to pry open the gauze on the girl's leg, and started inspecting the wound. The injury was serious, but Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief. It hadn't reached the artery in her thigh. He'd have to send her to the hospital if he didn't have professional surgical equipment, but whether or not she'd make it to the hospital was another matter. The wound was triangular. It was obvious that a sharp tool like a triangular knife had been used to stab into the wound. Due to the triangular shape of the wound, it was difficult to stop the bleeding with ordinary hemostatic medicine without suturing. Judging from the current situation, it was most likely that the girl had bandaged herself after getting hurt, but the wound didn't heal. Instead, it was bleeding profusely. She had no choice but to go to the pharmacy to buy Miracle Dr. Kang's golden creation, but she hadn't found it yet. On the way back, she finally fainted from blood loss. Lin Yi understood what the girl was doing. Assassins were a special profession, and they rarely went to the hospital even if they were injured. They'd take care of themselves if they could, in order to reduce the possibility of their identities being exposed. Knowing the girl's injury, Lin Yi could treat of the problem. The wound was deep, but it didn't hurt the arteries and tendons of the body. It wasn't a big problem. Lin Yi stood up and took out the Chinese medicine he bought at the pharmacy before. He quickly threw a few herbs into the utensils and ground them. This was a familiar process for Lin Yi. In the North African jungle, his own herbs were the most popular things among his teammates. Lin Yi had to grind a bag of them every time. It was impossible to use the gauze from before. It had been soaked in blood. Because the incident happened suddenly, Lin Yi wasn't prepared. Now he could only consider using other things as a replacement. Although his school uniform was newly changed in the morning, Lin Yi didn't want to take a piece of it off to bandage the female assassin. He got up and went to the bathroom, but he saw a disposable disinfectant bath towel on the shelf. Next to the bath towel, there was a small price tag with 40 yuan written on it. This kind of disposable disinfectant bath towel wouldn't exceed 20 yuan if purchased in bulk, but the price in the hotel was doubled. Of course, in addition to this kind of bath towel, there was also a bath towel provided by the hotel, but it wasn't disposable. This kind of bath towel was only provided to those who had mysophobia and loved cleanliness. It wasn't a compulsory consumption. Lin Yi took this kind of disinfectant bath towel. This thing was barely enough to be used as a bandage. He sprinkled the previously ground medicine on the girl's wound. The girl's mouth made a low, inaudible sound. It seemed that the medicine had touched the wound. However, Lin Yi didn't care about her. How could it not hurt to apply medicine? After sprinkling the medicine, Lin Yi tore the disposable bath towel into a few pieces and skillfully bandaged the girl's wound. Phew! Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief. It's finally done. Now it seemed that the girl just lost too much blood. If the bleeding was stopped now, the chance of survival was still very high. Of course, the vitality of an assassin was generally very tenacious. Lin Yi probably saw that the girl had regained her life. After waking up, apart from being a little weak, there was nothing serious. After dealing with the female assassin, Lin Yi got back to work. He'd made the medicine for the girl in a hurry, so he'd only made the right amount according to the need. Lin Yi's own wound hadn't even been healed yet. It was all ground, so it wasn't a big deal. The medicine for Yang Huijuan, however, had to be brewed slowly. The order and timing of each ingredient had to be strictly added, there couldn't be a single mistake. Even if the ingredients were similar, the effect of the medicine would be greatly reduced, and the desired effect wouldn't be achieved. This was why Lin Yi didn't give the prescription to Huijuan, choosing to make it himself instead. This prescription wasn't as easy as the painkillers he'd given Huijuan before, where all he had to do was buy all the ingredients and grind them together. Decocting this medicine, however, was different. On the other hand, Lin Yi didn't want this recipe to get out. He trusted Huijuan, but he was afraid that Huijuan would accidentally leak it out. This recipe would cause a huge uproar in the Eastern medicine world. Lin Yi found a place to set up the alcohol stove and clay pot, and started brewing the medicine for Huijuan. The hotel had appliances for brewing tea, but it was still better to use fire to brew the medicine. Brewing medicine was a very tiring job, but it was nothing for Lin Yi, who often made straw sandals at home. Lin Yi looked at the time on his phone as he skillfully put each ingredient into the clay pot. After who knew how long, Lin Yi heard a small movement not far behind him. If it weren't for Lin Yi's unusually sensitive hearing, he wouldn't have been able to hear it. Lin Yi didn't turn back, he was at a crucial point in brewing the medicine, and Lin Yi couldn't afford to be distracted. Lin Yi counted the time on his phone as he pinched the ingredients in his hands. Chapter 81. Mr. Dongguo. Lin Yi didn't expect the girl to be grateful to him, but it didn't seem like she was going to let him go. Just as Lin Yi was concentrating on the medicine, a murderous aura came at him from behind, and the jade on his mountain twitched as well, sending a signal of danger. Lin Yi frowned, but Lin Yi didn't want to be distracted at a crucial time like this. Stop it. Chi-Chi was feeling very conflicted, she'd fainted on the way out from the pharmacy due to blood loss, but Lin Yi had pulled off her pants, and the pain had helped her regain some of her senses, clearing her head a little. Her body was still too weak, and she didn't even have the strength to open her eyes before fainting again. When Lin Yi was treating her wounds and applying medicine, Chi-Chi woke up from the pain once more before fainting again. As a result, Chi-Chi had a rough idea of what had happened after that. It was this man in the room who'd saved her, but at the same time, he'd seen a lot of things he shouldn't have. Her face, her legs. These were things Chi-Chi couldn't tolerate. She'd killed her savior after crossing the river, and that made her feel uneasy. But her beauty had only blossomed for one man in this life, this man in the room had crossed her bottom line. With that decision made, Chi-Chi picked up her dagger by the bedside, and crept up behind Lin Yi. She paused noticeably at the sight of him concentrating on the medicine. Was he brewing medicine for her? Chi-Chi's heart warmed, and she didn't have the heart to make a move. Chi-Chi had to admit that her heart wasn't as cold as other assassins, cold and emotionless. No matter what, this man in the room was her savior. Just as Chi-Chi was hesitating, Lin Yi told her to stop it, like he was scolding a child. Chi-Chi was visibly taken aback. She was going to kill him, and he was telling her to stop. Did he think that she was just going to walk around the room? Didn't you hear the story of Mr. Dongguo when you were young? Lin Yi still didn't turn around. He continued, I feel like I'm like Mr. Dongguo in that story. Chi-Chi's face changed. Naturally, she knew about Mr. Dongguo's story. She'd grown up in an assassin organization, but she was different from the other assassins. Other than the assassin training, she'd received other forms of education. Mr. Dongguo's story was actually a classic fable. It was about a man named Mr. Dongguo who saved a wolf, but the wolf turned around and wanted to eat Mr. Dongguo. But, Lin Yi's words reminded Chi-Chi that Lin Yi's don't mess around wasn't just for show. Lin Yi knew that she was going to kill him. The story of Mr. Dongguo that he told later proved this point. He was insinuating that he was ungrateful. Who was this person? Chi-Chi's heart skipped a beat. He could tell that she was going to harm him with his back turned, and yet he didn't react at all. Was he fearless, or, in that case, the purpose of this person's treatment of his injuries was questionable? Chi-Chi felt a chill in her heart, and made up her mind. The dagger in her hand sped up, going for Lin Yi's neck without hesitation. Lin Yi didn't think that this assassin wasn't done yet. Was she trying to bully him with both hands? Lin Yi frowned and turned his head, dodging Chi-Chi's dagger. He opened his mouth and bit down on the dagger, as well as Chi-Chi's fingers. Ah! Chi-Chi's hand was in pain, and the dagger flew out of her hand. Her body hadn't recovered yet, and it was only through sheer willpower that she was able to stand up and walk behind Lin Yi. After the dagger left her hand, Chi-Chi collapsed onto the floor, panting heavily. The wound on her leg seemed to have been aggravated as well, and cold sweat dripped down Chi-Chi's forehead. Lin Yi spat the dagger to the side and continued brewing the medicine. You really are an ungrateful person. But it's fine, a good man doesn't fight with a woman. Leave now, or I'll kill you after I finish brewing the medicine. Chi-Chi understood now that Lin Yi wasn't a normal person. How could a normal person dodge her sneak attack? Could a normal person bite down on a dagger? Chi-Chi, on the other hand, understood from Lin Yi's words, he wasn't making the medicine for her, she was the one who thought too highly of herself. Humph. Chi-Chi's eyes were filled with humiliation and unwillingness. She wasn't an impulsive person, and as an assassin, she couldn't be impulsive either. Impulsive assassins would be killed first, and wouldn't be able to live until now. Since Lin Yi could easily take her dagger away with both his hands occupied, Chi-Chi gave up on the idea of fighting again. She wasn't a match for Lin Yi. Even when she wasn't injured, she couldn't guarantee that she'd be able to handle this man. There wasn't any killing intent on this man, not even a hint, but the feeling she got from him was unfathomable. He was truly unfathomable. In the organization, he would only have this kind of feeling when he was facing his own father. Chi-Chi silently picked up her leather pants from the floor. There was blood inside, but it was already dried. Other than being a little uncomfortable, it didn't affect her appearance. The problem was that there weren't any other clothes in the room. Don't forget to close the door when you leave. Lin Yi said as if he had eyes on the back of his head. Chi-Chi left the room and slammed the door shut. I'm sorry, this man saved my life, and I'm not a match for him right now. But don't worry, I'll remember him, and one day I'll kill him with my own hands, because I'm only your Shao Chi. Chi-Chi swore in her heart. In actuality, Chi-Chi wasn't called Yang Chi-Chi at first. Chi was just a code in the Assassin's graduation training group. She was the youngest, so naturally, she was the seventh. The other members of the group were named by numbers as well. On the other hand, Shield Bro Lin, who was brewing medicine in the room, didn't know that his good intentions were being remembered by others. Achoo! Lin Yi sneezed. It wasn't like he hadn't smelled the medicine before. Why was he sneezing now? This was the second sneeze today. Lin Yi sniffled. Did he really have a cold? Chapter 82. It was too cruel. Chi-Chi's wound had stopped bleeding, but her body wasn't healed yet. Her face was still pale, and she was limping. Even so, she didn't want to stay in the room. Since she couldn't kill Lin Yi, she'd just leave and come back when she had the chance. That was the rule of an assassin. If she couldn't win, then she wasn't an assassin, she was a Suicide Squad member. Limping down to the first floor, Chi-Chi went to the bar. Boss, what's the name of the man who brought me to room 209? Chi-Chi didn't ask Lin Yi's name, because she knew that Lin Yi wouldn't answer even if she did. Lin Yi treated her like a passerby, and she was trying to kill him. Lin Yi wouldn't go looking for trouble. But Chi-Chi wasn't an idiot, she knew that she had to register when staying at the hotel. She'd been unconscious at the time, and she didn't have any identification on her. It had to be Lin Yi. Oh. The boss paused, but came out immediately after seeing Chi-Chi's attire. She was the woman on the back of the man who'd rushed to get a room. It couldn't be, right? They didn't know each other, and they'd gotten together. Getting a room? But looking at her, she'd been carried. Was she drunk? If that was the case, then it was possible. Young men and women these days. The boss sighed at the degeneracy of the world, but she didn't think that her hotel would still be doing so well if it weren't for these young men and women coming to get a room. His name is Lin Yi. The boss said as she looked at the registration book. Thanks. Chi-Chi nodded, committing the name to memory. Lin Yi, huh? She didn't know if it was a real name or a fake one, but whatever it was, Chi-Chi hated the name. You're welcome. For the boss, it was nothing more than a matter of lifting a finger. Chi-Chi memorized Lin Yi's name before turning to leave the hotel. The boss couldn't help but click her tongue as she limped out of the hotel. It couldn't be, right? That much? Can't even walk. That man just now didn't look very powerful, but he was actually so powerful. Could this be the girl's first time? The lady boss shook her head and thought evilly in her heart. To Lin Yi, Chi-Chi's incident was nothing more than a small interlude. Lin Yi wasn't too happy about the fact that Chi-Chi had stabbed him. He'd saved her life after all, and although he'd only seen her thigh, how was he supposed to treat it if he didn't? According to her, if she were to kill someone for looking at her thighs, she wouldn't be able to see the nurse today. Should he also take a knife and kill that auntie? Although the firepower of the alcohol stove was not as strong as that of the gas stove, it could still be used if it was controlled well. The decocted decoctions were placed into sealed bags bought from the pharmacy. Because the decoctions were hot, there was naturally steam. When the decoctions cooled down, the steam would turn into water, and the sealed bags would become a vacuum. This was good for preservation, and the decoctions would not deteriorate. After everything was done, Lin Yi put away the medicine brewing equipment. He could still use these next time. The alcohol was pretty much all gone, but these things were sold everywhere. He didn't think he'd left anything behind, so he called the reception downstairs and told her to check out. But, when Lin Yi's eyes landed on the bed, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed that he'd have to pay for it. There were bloodstains all over the bedsheets, evidently. It didn't take long for the owner to saunter into the room. It seemed that this hotel usually didn't have any attendants, and she was the only one running the place. Lin Yi had opened the window before the owner came up, letting in some fresh air. The smell of the medicine wasn't that strong, and the owner didn't notice it at all. She was stunned by the blood on the bed the moment she stepped into the room. Lin Yi's eyes widened as he stared at the blood on the bed. You. This bedsheet? The owner pointed at the bedsheet in the room, shocked. She couldn't speak. She was too shocked, too shocked. She'd been thinking that it was Chi-Chi's first time, and that was why she was limping. Now that she saw the blood stains on the bedsheets, it only confirmed her evil thoughts. But, at the same time, she thought that Lin Yi didn't know how to be gentle with the fairer sex, either. It was his first time, and he was already in such a terrible state. Was he trying to kill her? Was he trying to kill her? If someone were to die in her hotel, she'd be in deep trouble. At that thought, the owner's face darkened. This bedsheet was at least 10 kwai, and with the money she made for the room, she didn't have much left after the bedsheet. What did you do to the room? The owner asked coldly. I'm sorry, I'll pay you for it. Lin Yi didn't know how to explain, so he just told the owner that he'd pay the full price. Since Lin Yi was willing to pay, naturally, the owner didn't say anything else. She thought that this kid was quite smart, or she'd have been waiting to insult him. After checking the room, the owner said, 1 disposable towel, 40 kwai. 1 bedsheet, 60 kwai. 100 kwai in total. Alright. Lin Yi nodded. This owner wasn't too unscrupulous. This kind of white bedsheet cost 30 kwai in bulk. She sold it to me for 60 kwai, which was the same price as the towel. It was just double the price. The owner saw that Lin Yi was straightforward, so she didn't say anything else. Then, you come downstairs with me. Let's calculate the room fee. You've rested in the room for 5 hours, so I'll have to charge you according to the standard for a day. It's 60 kwai. You paid me another 60 kwai. Lin Yi nodded. After he went downstairs, he took out the money and gave it to the owner. Then, he turned around and prepared to leave. Wait. The owner stopped Lin Yi. Is there anything else? Lin Yi turned around and asked. He wondered if the owner felt that it wasn't worth it and wanted to extort him again. The girl you brought just now asked for your name before she left. I told her. The owner saw that Lin Yi was so straightforward, so she kindly reminded him. Based on her intuition, the two of them definitely wouldn't be a couple, so the owner said a few more words. Ah. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He didn't want to have any contact with the female assassin anymore, but he didn't expect that the female assassin actually remembered his name when she left. Probably, there would be trouble in the future. After leaving the hotel, Lin Yi looked at the time. It was already 2:00 in the afternoon. He hadn't had lunch yet, but for Lin Yi, a meal wasn't very important. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.